Seven.
Yeah, we got Abraham asking a question, a very important question. What's up? What's the news? Are we going to die yet? Well, Abraham, I got some tough news for you. We're all going to die eventually.
Eventually, yes.
Now, is it going to be in a nuclear hellfire from a stupid war, or will it be at a ripe old age? You know, that's kind of up to our governments and then us, we the people, trying to affect change. But thank you all for being here tonight. Welcome to Gray Area.
It is another beautiful day. We've got a special episode lined up for you guys.
What's going on?
Tonight, we have a journalist by the name of Dylan Burns, and he has been on the front lines of the Ukraine conflict, quite literally next to these soldiers since 2022, guys.
Wow.
So, I mean, you can't get any better than this in terms of expert experience.
Absolutely.
Stories that you probably would not see reported by mainstream media. So this one is going to be a great episode. We're also going to be doing a deep dive tonight.
What's the deep dive on?
Deep dive tonight was actually from it was Ashley. Ashley, I see you in the chat there. Thank you for bringing this up to my attention. So
repost the streams.
Yes.
Everybody
repost the stream.
repost the stream.
Ashley brought this up to my attention, and she said that she had a debate with her brother. And remember, I asked whether 2008 or 2009, for the people who remember, what's worse than now.
Yeah.
She kind of really got me to start really thinking about it, and I was like, I got you. Let's do it. So that's what tonight's deep dive is about. What's on your mind today?
Well, I think it's really going to be interesting to talk about Ukraine because we haven't been talking about Ukraine. It's just been the war in Iran. They must not have a nuclear weapon. I mean, we've probably heard they must not have a nuclear weapon probably 1,000 times, like being conservative. And, you know, the whole reason why I got back into political commentary just in general, and I wanted to talk about these things, was the situation in Ukraine is just unbelievable.
It is. It's actually probably, in terms of modern conflicts, it's the most deadly that's going on right now.
Yeah, conservatively, and they both sides lie about the numbers, whatever, 1.5 million people dead.
Yep.
Which is insane, right? That's like World War numbers.
I bet you numbers are underreported on both sides, to be honest.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's like how
agree.
I mean, how
could you?
Yeah, how could you? I think we will only get the real number once this war has concluded, probably like 3-5 years from now, maybe.
And that's true for all the conflicts. And, you know, like that's something that we don't consider, but oftentimes I consider it. I think about it. It's like, what are the documentaries going to be like in 10 years?
Oh, crazy. Netflix is salivating right now. They already got something cooked up. They're going to be covering this from start to finish. But you know, the great part about this independent ability to put our own voices out there, I'm glad that we have Dylan that's coming on because you can't get any better than this, folks.
No, absolutely. Totally agree. Super excited. It's going to be a great show. I've got a bunch of news to get into after the interview, and of course, we got the deep dive. I want to show you guys some clips of the Joe Kent interview / show that I did on InfoWars on Friday. I've got a few, kind of a collection for y'all. You know how I always reference that Jonathan Pollard clip? Like I always play it of him talking about the nuclear weapons.
Yep.
Well, I thought it would be cool to get Joe Kent to watch that and get his thoughts on it. So that's what I did. And I've got that clip and I got a bunch of other ones as well. The situation in Iran, for people that want to know, because like both me and Tim, but like really especially me, because I watch way too much of it. I'll be honest, way too much of it. All the analysts basically agree right now. And they're like, well, both sides are trying to prod each other and poke and see what they can get away with, namely the Americans more than the Iranians.
Right.
And the ceasefire is not really a ceasefire. It's kind of just like, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you. And there are military actions taken in the Strait. There was, I believe, an attack on a tanker and stuff that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. And you know, it's crazy. It's like Israel and Lebanon is still going. Israel and Lebanon. There's a lot still happening over there, and that's also not being covered as much.
Yeah.
That's the main conflict if you think about the Iran conflict. Like
absolutely. And I was watching Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson talk about it, and basically the Israelis are having to adopt, like a holding position. Like they're not able to expand. They're not annexing more territory because, like, how could you? Just like we were talking about earlier, like there's so much military action happening right now, and they're actually losing so many people and casualties.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, they claim 20 dead. I don't believe that number. And they're probably the only other modern military besides us that has like this like crazy low threshold for casualty numbers, right? Because like you think about it, like an American dies, then like the American people get upset, and then that leads them to not want the war. Like a big reason why a lot of Americans are anti-war is because we lost 13 Americans so far, right? For the Israelis, especially the ones that are like Orthodox and like don't want them to go fight and die in general, like that really they're like, we're losing our people out there.
Yeah, it's like a call.
And then Netanyahu gets blamed.
Yeah.
And he should be blamed. He's evil and he's sending them off to die. Like that's a situation. But like things are becoming untenable for both Trump and Netanyahu, and they either have to go full expansion or there has to be a suing for peace. I don't think there's going to be a suing for peace.
Well, I just actually talked to my buddy today who was supposed to be stationed in Kuwait.
Oh shit.
It's weird because he actually told me we don't have as many troops out there as everybody thinks. I thought I said, oh, maybe we probably have like somewhere around like 50,000 maybe.
Oh, that's a ton. No.
Well, like it's probably somewhere around like, I thought it was at least 20 or more, but he was like, yeah, no, like the number is way less than that. So like there's no opportunity for us to really do boots on the ground, and Iran doesn't want to actually like hurt us directly, because if we had like 50 soldiers die all of a sudden, we would bring out the biggest bat possible.
Yeah, I mean, it already happened, but it happened because we initiated.
Well, no, right? I mean, it's 13 overall, but it's not like they could do more, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree. I think that like as far as like deaths go, I think that there's probably like hundreds of casualties that we don't know about.
That's possible.
And it's like, oh, well, he's brain dead, but he's not actually dead, so we count him as alive. Like, there's probably a lot of stuff. That would be my assumption.
Yeah.
But you talk about that. I just want to bring this up really quick while we wait for the guest. An Iranian ballistic missile strike on a Kuwaiti airbase within the past 24 hours caused minor injuries to several Americans and seriously damaged 2 MQ-9 Reaper strike drones. So, forget even about the American life. Just like Trump, just forget about the American life. It doesn't matter, whatever. That's like $60 million. Those 2 drones. Each one is like 25, 30 million.
Wait, which?
The Reaper drones?
Oh, yeah.
Super expensive.
Yeah, those are expensive.
So I want to do a minor deep dive on this. I'm going to do it tomorrow on the morning show. Trump has lost between the Houthi campaign, the Iranian campaign, and now just the continuation of the fake ceasefire. He's lost over 45 aircraft. Like, it's crazy, or damn near close to 45. I know it's over 30.
Throw that up there, Wes.
Yeah, go ahead and throw that up really quick. What do you think? We're paying for it, right, Tim?
Damn. I remember when this number was sitting around like 20 or so.
Don't that feel good? Isn't that liberal?
Oh, man, this is amazing. Right. Yeah, Ashley said, are we tired of winning? But we are winning.
Somebody had to do it. I had to do it. I had to spend the money. It couldn't have gone to you. Absolutely not. It had to go to the military-industrial complex.
It is what it is.
I guess so, but we're going to talk to someone that's like actually been on the ground viewing this. It's probably just hell on earth. That's probably what we're going to hear about.
Yeah, and he had to cancel last week because he had an opportunity to go out to the front lines again.
So we'll get really good
reporting. Like probably really good reporting for tonight.
Very exciting. You want to intro him really quick before he comes up?
Yeah, let me just double check, make sure he's good.
Joe Biden, wake up. Joe Biden. I'm looking for the nearest soup bowl. I think we can get a roll tide for that. We can get a roll tide for that. But we are winning. Y'all tired of winning yet? Yeah, I am kind of tired of winning. It's winning for them. It's not winning for us. To be 80 years old and to feel young again, right?
Yep. Okay, so yeah, so like with Dylan, he's about to join us very shortly, but I kind of want him to speak for himself and kind of just break down all of his background. Like
We all been talking, so you ask a lot of questions. I
yeah,
only got a couple.
yeah, and mainly what I'm interested in. So I don't know why he opted to go to the front lines in 2022 because this was at the beginning. So
Right.
I mean, he's been out there to risk your life for one, to
Right.
do good journalism says a lot. I mean, I not everybody's going to be bold enough to do that for one.
Absolutely.
But you know, really what I'm very interested in is figuring out what is it the average experience like for somebody who's on the front lines. Like what is the soldier going through? Because we often dehumanize these situations just from the mere fact that we are far removed from it and we're looking at it through a phone. So, you know, these people are literally in trenches, dying, watching their friends get sent to the meat grinder on both sides. And at some point, you know, both sides have to be asking themselves, if you're just a regular soldier, it's like, why are we doing this?
Right.
And it really is a decision from up top, from people who have just the ability to say, well, no, we're going to keep going.
But the thing is like, and that's the sad thing about it, is it's gotten so bloody and so brutal. And I mean, if you look at the attack recently on the elementary school, or not an elementary school, but a place where they train the elementary school teachers, like kindergarten teachers, that just happened in Russia. And if you look at the strikes that are now happening in Kiev in retaliation, like it's really, really ugly, and it's been directly fueled by the West. Okay, we paid for it, all right,
Yeah.
in large part. And you can say, oh, well, like they have sovereignty and you shouldn't want them to lose their land. I don't want them to lose their land. That's not what this is about. What this is about is stopping the murder. Okay. And when you have the 1.5 million people dead, you have to make serious compromises and real decisions. And that's what adults do. Adults don't watch Star Wars movies.
Yeah. And the problem is,
They do, but not like,
and the problem is this has been going on and on and on. We're just seeing like
forget about it.
Yeah. That we're seeing part 3 to this, guys. I mean, this conflict has been going on for almost two decades now, because you're talking about go back to even like 2013.
It's true.
You know,
100%.
the Maidan coup, everything that happened in Georgia, like there's been conflict in that region. And look, I always going to boil it down to like people who just don't care and think that they have it all figured out and not realizing the butterfly effect. But it really is a like catch-22 situation to where like Russia's like, hey, we don't want, you know, our quote unquote enemy in our backyard, just like we're not going to have missiles parked in Cuba.
Right.
And then you also have the Ukrainians who are like, hey, look, also we care about our sovereignty and how do we protect ourselves and make sure that Russia's not going to
their nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
That is if you're going to do like the pro-Ukraine argument, and there is a pro-Ukraine argument, I don't happen to necessarily agree with it, but there is a strong argument for it. You say, okay, they gave up their nuclear weapons in promises from both the West and the East, from the then Soviet Union or into Soviet Union, and then the West, meaning NATO and America. They said, okay, we will engage in nuclear disarmament, but we are neutral, and neither one of you guys is going to mess with us. Now, someone on the Russian side would say, well, they made deals with NATO, and they're doing NATO exercises, and we've kind of covered that before.
And that is the biggest problem here.
Right.
It's the West poking itself into it. Like technically, Ukraine wouldn't have any problem with Russia. Oh, we've got Dylan in the background.
Let's go ahead and hear from the man himself.
Hey,
What's going
Dylan,
on?
do me a favor while we get you loaded. I sent you the link so we can get your audience in here to retweet. Just go ahead and retweet the stream so that we're going to get into a very good conversation here. But yeah.
1 second.
Rex will be right back. But yeah, super excited for this one. You know, we're going to be asking Dylan about a lot of different things, what his personal experience like, why did he get involved? But like I said, for people who are just joining the stream right now, Dylan is a guy who does streams, but also is a reporter, great journalist, field reporter, where he's risking his life and he's out on the front line doing great journalism. He's been there since 2022. There's a lot that we can go in, but I would rather have him explain himself and kind of who he is. So Dylan, we're glad to have you on the stream, man.
Welcome.
How are you doing? You just got back from the front lines again, right?
Yeah. I was on the Druskivka-Konstantinivka axis, where there's like the center of Russian operations is trying to take that city right now, because it's one of the many barriers they still have to get through in order to get to the last major unoccupied Ukrainian settlements in the Donbass region, which is Kramatorsk and Slovyansk. And Konstantinivka is full of a lot of stubborn people, and it's been a very stubborn fight. It looks like they'll probably take it, in my opinion, by sometime in late summer going into winter. But in that area right now, it's like 24/7 drone coverage, a very, very active axis. And I wanted to go out there to see what it was like, because I've been filming on the Konstantinivka axis over the period of a year, as I following my Pokrovsk documentary, which was also over a year. So I'm trying to basically document the battle of what might be the final chapters of the fight for the Donbass region, which I think is really, really important.
Wow, that's fantastic. There's a lot that we can go into.
Yeah, well, I want to ask really one quick question. You said there what might be the last of the battle for the Donbass region. What's going on there? What do you mean by that?
I mean that there's two things that are colliding. On one side, you have the Ukrainians, which have manpower problems, the Ukrainians, which have questions about support from foreign countries, whether they will get it, whether they won't get it, and how that's straining their ability to defend themselves. And you have the Russian problem of continuing to be able to recruit new people when their budget is strained. The amounts that local governments have to offer in bonuses and advances are ballooning and ballooning in size. The average age of a Russian soldier has gone from 40 to 50 when we talk about the people who are recruiting for Russian military service. So this is very much a war of people with gray hairs. And so you have that combined with the ever-building pressure of the Ukrainian drone campaign hitting Russian oil refineries. And once the Strait of Hormuz opens again and global oil prices start to go down, combined with the Ukrainian drone strikes, that's going to mean a lot of pressure on the Russian economy. And so these two things are colliding, as the Russians have also blown through a lot of their mechanized equipment, making mass mechanized assaults as we've remembered them in yesteryear, not really a possibility right now. So there's only a grinding advance. And so the question is, who will be grinded down first, essentially?
Right. Okay, there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. So what I want to do is we're going to take a step back. We're going to take the 10,000-foot view, because there's a lot of people who do not know who you are and should know exactly who you are. Man, how the hell did you just decide one day to just get into this thing? Because you've been there since 2022. Like, take us from the beginning.
Yeah, April of 2022. So essentially a month and a half into it, once I saw that the situation was generally stable, and what a lot of early predictions were about the war, like that it, number one, wouldn't happen. And then when it did happen, number two, well, it'll certainly be a 2-week long scuffle. That, you know, the idea was you just kick down the door and then the whole rotten edifice would just kind of collapse in on itself, which didn't give the Ukrainians really much credit at all. And also really overestimated what the Russians were going to be coming to the table with early on. You weren't seeing like the full mass of Russia crashing into Ukraine in 2022. You saw about like 180,000 men out of, you know, a country of 130 million. They really underestimated what the Ukrainians were going to be able to do. And so I see a bunch of professors in suits and talking heads on TV saying, well, the war won't happen. And then it does, and it embarrasses a bunch of people in established media and alternative media. And then those same people say, well, this will be over in 2 weeks. But I'm following the reports, and I'm listening to Russian radio communications, because that stuff early on, it's all on the airwaves. You could tune in to Russian radio communications for the first 3 weeks because they were speaking on open radio channels. And so I was just live listening to, oh, the Russians say they're getting shelled at this point. Oh, the Russians say they're getting bombed at that point. And it just was not melding with what a lot of the professional war commentary class, I don't know what you want to call them as a grouping, but it was not meshing. And so I thought, you know, I've gotten a little bit of increased intention because of the way I'm covering the war, just trying to follow day by day fighting and trying to keep that and my personal beliefs as two separate entities so that people could get a reliable source. And so I said, how can I improve my coverage? Do I get a bigger studio or do I go on the ground? And I decided I'd rather spend the money to go on the ground. And what turned into a 1 week in bed turned into going on 5 years now, because I've gotten a real love for this type of work.
Wow, very noble work, I will say, especially what he said, Tim, about trying to separate like personal view versus like the actual like reporting that you're bringing to people, the
Yep.
facts on the ground. I mean, that's why I kind of call myself a pundit and not a journalist, is because this is what it means to be a journalist. ladies and
100%
gentlemen.
not having any bias and trying to give people the facts, because that's what's missing today in media. And so like
Absolutely.
we're very happy to have you and people like you doing things like that. Now, when you went into Ukraine to start off with at the beginning of the conflict, like how did you, were you scared? Were you nervous? Like that's a big deal to decide that. That's very dangerous. And I'm sure like your thought process has changed, but something's kept you there for 5 years, as you had mentioned.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just I keep getting offered opportunities, and when those opportunities come, I just kept making the mental decision to take them instead of just being like, you know what, let me just, stand back a little bit. Because at first it was supposed to be I'm going to go to Warsaw, I'm going to interview refugees, and then I can go home and, enjoy my crabbing in Maryland, do all my whatever I want to do back in my home state. But as I interviewed more refugees, I was like, I think I could get a better understanding if I went a little bit closer. Let me go to a border town called Lublin, where a lot of refugees were channeling through in the early days. Let me talk to local mayors and administrators, who were the main people who responded early on. The national governments and heads of state, they take a lot of credit. But honestly, it was local government, local people working with mayorships and like county councils that did most of the early refugee response and helped a lot of these like women and children that were fleeing the initial waves of the war when the country was on fire and nobody really knew what was going to happen. And as I got more and more understanding, I just kind of had this compulsion to keep going further and further, and turned into a career. And now I do this basically full time. I'm in Ukraine the majority of the year, and I go home for holidays, special occasions, and like family events and such. So I really appreciated the opportunity I've been given.
Wow. Yeah, and so what I'm also curious, because we're gonna talk about the conflict itself and
I
what
got
you're saying.
questions.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
got a ton of questions. I want to humanize
Sure.
this just a little bit to begin with, because what most people are seeing is just the headlines, right? They're just watching it through their phone, like Rex and I do the same thing: news articles,
Yep.
videos, you name it. For you on the front lines, interacting with Ukrainians, I'm not sure if you've interacted with the Russians. What is it like?
I have.
Yeah, humanize this for us and make us understand what is the sentiment. What does it feel like for somebody who is actually involved in this conflict? Because
Morale.
both sides, morale, but like also both sides have nationalism at play. They're angry emotions. What is it like for these people?
Sure. So I'll speak mostly to the Ukrainian perspective because I have spoken to Russians, but most of the Russians I've spoken to are Russians fighting on the Ukrainian side. People in organizations like the Russian Volunteer Corps who want to see like Putin's downfall. And so they have a very specific view, and trying to speak as if their view represents the broader Russian view, I think would be disingenuous. So I'm going to mostly speak to the Ukrainian view, but I also constantly read the Russian press, Russian newspapers, Russian war bloggers, try to just read like random Russian civilian accounts so I can speak a little bit the average Russian mentality. In Ukraine, the mentality generally is at the moment is that the war is continuing. They want to see it end. They'd like to see the fighting stop. But at this point, the general perspective is that there doesn't seem to be an immediate option for that the war is dragging on. Where the last year there was a lot of confusion. There was talk there was going to be a 24-hour peace deal, and then it was like, well, it's not a 24 hours, but it's around the corner. And then there was all this engagement, but then the engagement always felt generally surface level, that it didn't really get to a lot of the nitty gritty details of like, okay, would civilians be able to come back to displaced territories in the Donbass? Would the 40 Baptist and Protestant churches shut down in Mariupol? Would they be able to reopen? Would there be any settlement to, the Russians like digging in and actually moving their heavy armory back? A lot of these finer details didn't get worked out. They didn't get worked out with the Ukrainians directly. None of the negotiators ever went to Kiev. And so it always felt like there was like these big promises of peace negotiations, big promises of successes right around the corner. But I never got a reading either from the intelligentsia, from people somewhat involved in negotiations that I know, or from people on the ground that there was a general upswing and hope that negotiations were going to succeed immediately after like the first few weeks of the Trump presidency and that 24-hour promise that a lot of Ukrainians heard. And I mean, my main fixer in the country, the main person who's worked for me, he wanted Trump to win because he believed Trump would come in as, He's the big cowboy. He's the American cowboy. He'll come in, he'll say, hey, come on, Putin, get this war over with. And then they would freeze the line where it is. And then maybe in a decade or however long, he'd be able to go back to his home in Donetsk. Who knows? But that's not what happened. And so the general belief is, well, if Trump and Putin couldn't settle it, then obviously the Russians want to keep going on with the war, that we have to keep fighting. We don't want to, but there's not much of a choice. And that is the majoritarian position. There's a bunch of positions under that. There's people who would fight to I will fight to the bitter end. There's no circumstance where I want peace with the Russians because they're occupying my home. There's people who are like, let's just freeze it where it is, but they're not even agreeing to freeze it where it is. So, we have to keep fighting. There's people all along that spectrum, but the majoritarian position is this sucks, but we have to keep fighting, with a little bit of hope about the long-range campaign, because the Ukrainians have had some successes there, and without money, you can't fight a war, and so there is some hope there, but that's about it.
Yes, it takes money to win a war. That's something that we actually often say on the show, and something that we often discuss in relation to just Ukraine and the modern battlefield in general is the reality of drone warfare, right? Because it seems like we're getting into this weird territory, kind of like World War I, where you have the appearance of chemical weapons, and it's this new thing, and it's so horrible and terrifying. And I don't know, just some of the footage that I've seen that's come out of the Ukraine war, of soldiers being chased by FPV drones, kind of taunted by FPV drones. It appears to happen on both sides. It's just absolutely brutal. And from what I've heard, there's areas that are 100 miles long or however long, I don't know because I'm not there. Maybe you can give perspective, that are just covered in fiber optic cable. So what's the reality of drone warfare as someone that's been there, and how do the people that have to fight in that feel about it?
Sure. So I've seen the transformation of drone warfare from start to finish. And I've been working on a project for a long time called the Ukrainian Drone Bible, which is trying to embed with every single type of drone team possible and as many conditions as possible, understanding everything from piloting the drone to soldering the drone, manufacturing the drone, just everything possible about understanding this evolution in drone warfare. Because I think I look at this almost pseudo-religiously. This is an extremely important moment in the development of warfare, and it needs to be documented aggressively. So at this point, there's a kill zone within 10 to 15 kilometers of the line of contact. And the reason I call that the kill zone is that there's so many drones that if you walk around for a minute or two, you will hear their buzzing, you will have to take cover. Just as an example, not to pick out a specific area for focus, but in Druskivka, which I was just on that axis, we probably had 15 to 17 interactions with drones within an afternoon, within a day's of work. We had to walk something like 22 kilometers because driving in and out of that area, it was just too heavy. And the people that we did see drive in and out of that area, we saw vehicles on fire because of just how constant the drone presence was. Now, that is true both on the Ukrainian side and that is true on the Russian side for the dominance of the drone. Of the drone kill zone, as you could call it. Then there is a further area, you could say 15 to 30 to 40 kilometers back, which now is being struck more and more by mid-range strike drones and some other FPV drones that they've been able to alter to get them deeper and deeper in. Sometimes they have them on mothership drones, but this is a lot less frequent, but is becoming something you see a lot in Kramatorsk right now, which has gotten closer and closer to Russian positions. And so civilians driving around, aid workers driving around, and military personnel driving around, they're all at risk. And then further out, you have the longer range drone program. This is where you get your Shahed 136, of Iranian invention. That's where you get on the Ukrainian side, the longer range drones that have been striking Russian oil refineries and digging deep into the Russian countryside, targeting the economic support for the war. And so I think that it can be separated into short range, kill zone, mid-range, logistic strangling, and long-range economic war, which usually targeting factories, energy, stuff of that sort.
So what it sounds like to me is the fears of what was deadly has transitioned since you have seen this conflict unfold. Because at the beginning of the conflict, what I used to see that people were concerned about was the jets Artillery was a very big one. I used to hear about shellings and missiles and those types of things. Now, is it more so that it just became that drone was just cheaper? Somebody figured out like that's the way that we need to go, and then the Russians were like adjusted accordingly, or the Russians just like out of that stuff and like half of it's been destroyed? Because that's the part that's really hard to understand is like what's going on? Why did everything change so quickly over the last, I would say, the last couple of years?
I think it's push and pull factors. The pull factor is innovation that, yes, these are cheaper. I mean, I think Magyar said he's like the head of the Ukrainian drone forces. He's very, very effective at what he does. It's men like him that has kept Ukraine like able to fight the largest country on the planet, which is quite a feat considering the circumstances they're under. He said that it costs about $868 or $78 to kill a man with one of these drones. And when you do that math versus, an artillery shell, and you have to fire how many artillery shells that could cost thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of dollars potentially, definitely depending upon if you have more targeting technology embedded in the system. Just the economics just doesn't work out, especially when you don't fire one shell. You fire 2, 3, 4, 5. You've killed 2 people. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now these drones, you usually have to use a lot of them in order to actually get one kill in mass. But when you talk about the best drone teams Ukraine has to offer that are really good at targeting, that have been doing this for a long time, they can do a lot more damage with a lot less money than an artillery team could when it comes to the amount of vehicles being taken out over a wider area, because they have better targeting, they can readjust, whereas the artillery shell, you fire it and that's it. You put in a coordinate, it's going to fire as close to that coordinate as you want. But if that car is moved along the road, then you miss the car. The drone can target, the drone can move. And so it's cheaper, it's got the targeting ability, and a drone team is easy to hide in a tree line. And a big-ass cannon isn't.
Right.
Now that makes a lot of sense. So you're talking about kind of like these different ranges of strikes, and something that I've been following, and I watch a lot of geopolitical media, is the strikes that have happened inside of Russia, namely the strike that took place on the nuclear triad, on those nuclear bombers where they had the 18-wheelers come in that didn't know what they were carrying, and the drones pop out of the top and then pew, and
blow up all of those like
Yes.
billion-dollar planes.
Yeah.
Operation Spiderweb.
Yes, Operation Spiderweb, and then the subsequent attack on Putin's residence. Do you know anything about those two events? Maybe you could elaborate for the audience who are aware.
I can elaborate on Operation Spiderweb. As for if there was a serious attack on Putin's residence, I think that's still up in the air. I really don't know.
Okay.
It also wouldn't make much sense to me because I just find it hard to believe that if the Ukrainians got him, they would get him in his bed. It's just very, and not to mention he's like barely in his residence to begin with. So it's just like if it was an attack on his residence, it might have been more a statement of we can strike your residence, less than we're actually trying to kill Putin, because it would be.
I think it was a neighboring military facility, so I don't want to get that confused. But yeah, I'm sure you're correct. But what about Operation Spiderweb? What happened there? Yeah. That's like James Bond stuff. That's crazy.
So the Ukrainians got a bunch of shipping containers. They filled them with FPV drones, and then they got Russian drivers. They gave them an order, like just move it to this location and wait for further instructions. They do so, and then the tops of these shipping containers open up for these FPVs in range of major Russian targets, air bases, mostly Strategic Bomber Command, and like areas where they use heavy bombers to bomb Ukrainian cities. So these are major air bases that have been used to bomb Kiev, Dnipro, Lviv, major cities, and they mostly targeted the bomber infrastructure. So aircraft that have been used not only as part of their Strategic Bomber Command for their atomic arsenal, but also as direct participants in the war, which made Russia's position of arguing about like, well, these weapons were part of the Strategic Bomber Command, you can't attack these. It's much harder to make that argument on the international stage if you were using those exact planes at the time that they were being struck to bomb Ukraine. And so it was a big humiliation for Russia on the world stage when it comes to its ability to both protect its nuclear triad and also the fact that the Ukrainians were able to penetrate so deep. But it also poses, I think, a risk for any future leader. The Ukrainians, the United States, India, China, whatever country, you don't need a lot of space to fit a bunch of FPV drones in a van, in a truck. And whether you're an intelligence agency, whether you're a terrorist organization, whether you're a military organization, or whatever organization, you're being a cult for all I know, if you have the knowledge of how to do it, I don't understand why any of these organizations couldn't repeat said behavior. And so this is just something that governments all around the world are going to have to adapt to, because it wasn't just the United States learning from that. It was also organizations like Hezbollah or other groups.
Wow. Yeah, that is a good analysis. I mean, I always say this. I'm like, Ukraine-Russia war is almost like the biggest play box for like all of the weapons you could possibly use, and just seeing how modern warfare actually works in practice, because
research and development.
Right.
Right.
And then, so I want to get into more some of the anecdotal things for your own personal experience. What is the craziest thing that you have seen since being in Ukraine? Like, I'm sure you probably have. You had any near-death experiences? Have you?
Oh, yeah, but that's not crazy. That's. I mean, you're in a war zone. Like, that's gonna happen. To me, that's not crazy. I think, to me, like, crazy is, I don't know. The first day I'm in Ukraine, I find out Lviv, like, alcohol's banned. I can't get liquor, and I'm in Ukraine. That's crazy to me. That doesn't make any sense. That's not what I was led to believe was going to happen in this country. Crazy to me, if I was to talk about just things that have shocked me, would probably be the human safari in Kherson. This is just the human safari in Kherson. Essentially, is that Russian drone pilots in Kherson have an absolutely horrible reputation. A reputation for targeting civilians, a reputation for targeting firefighters, a reputation for targeting ambulance workers, a reputation for targeting the civilians, then the ambulance crews come. So then they target the ambulance crews, and then the firefighters come to put out the fire, and then they target the firefighting crews. And the thing is, I remember being down there trying to collect evidence, like immediately after the Novkogorsk Dam exploded. They were bombing the city within 48 hours, hitting aid teams. And I went down there like, okay, I'm going to have to gather evidence, and oh snap, my friend just got hit, they're bombing us. Well, afterwards, we're going to have to like adjust the trajectory of the shot, see like, oh, how did it come in, prove it was the Russians. And then they just post it all on social media. They just post the video of bombing us on social media. They post the videos of them bombing aid workers on social media. They post of the firefighters, of the ambulance crews, and of like a lot of times even just elderly people walking around. They'll either say that the targets are military, or if they don't look like military, they'll say they're assisting military. So if you see an elderly person being blown up, they'll say, well, that elderly person was bringing food to the armed forces, or that elderly person was doing X, Y, Z. And of course, in our case, that was not the case. We were there on the riverbank because elderly people and disabled people were drowning in their homes after the dam exploded. And so we were trying to film the aid operations there. And I know John, who was there, he got hit. He was an elderly British expat. I know other aid workers that were showing me their injuries when we were there at the time. It's really hard to film down there because of just the gigantic level of security risk. But I've seen some like pretty terrible stuff down there, and I think the human safari should be talked about more.
I see. Yeah, these are significantly underreported stories. Like the average person here is not going to really know about that. This is the first time that I've heard about these situations, and I definitely want to do my own research. Now, I know you said earlier, you were like, well, that's not...
Let me just also say, when we were there with those teams, it was a private military company that did the strike on us. It was a Russian private military company that worked for the head of the Crimean occupation, who also happens to be former mafia. A lot of times, the behaviors of these organizations come from, to be frank, just the caliber of the leadership that they have to bring themselves to. Well, when you have a lot of the criminal elements, when the Russians took over, were the most willing to work with the Russian occupation and the most willing to like organize a military state for them.
Well, let's talk about the impact of like private military contractors, mercenaries. What is that like in this war?
Oh, I mean, they're everywhere. I mean, on the Russian side, of course, there was the most famous, the Wagner Group, which is now the Africa Corps, which is mostly being seen in locations like Central Africa and Mali at this point. But there was other PMCs as well. You could go all around and find all crazy companies that have PMCs. Gazprom, of course, a very famous Russian energy company. They have a private military corporation. And now the Russian government has actually loosened the restrictions. So organizations like Gazprom and banks, they can actually now buy air defense systems to protect their assets because of the growing Ukrainian drone threat. Then you've got, the foreign volunteers on the American kind of U.S., Europe, or just like Ukraine aligned side. That's where the majority of these fighters are coming from. Most of them are ideological when it comes to the volunteers. But then you've got certain groups where it's a lot less ideological, where, for example, the Colombians are largely coming here because they know they'll get a good check, and they know at home the Colombian Armed Forces does not get paid as well as Ukrainian armed servicemen who are actually serving on the front line. But if you're talking about an American soldier or you're talking about a European soldier, most of them are ideological volunteers. They're people who are fighting because they believe in it for whatever reason. It could be that they don't like the Russians because they're Finnish, Estonian, Latvian, and they believe the Russians are going to attack them next. It could be that they're American and they believe that America made a promise to support Ukraine, and they're here to help deliver on that promise. So a lot of them are, when it comes to the American perspective, are war on terror vets who felt that they didn't fight a war that was worth fighting for, and now this is that war where they could feel like they're doing something that's worth fighting for. But those are the foreign volunteers versus the foreign, I guess you could say, military contractors. Mercenaries is the word people use, but it's also not very technical. But yeah, private military contractors is.
It sounds pretty global to me. That's kind of what I'm hearing, right? Because we had the North Koreans came in for the Russians too, right? Yep. Talking about operations from military or mercenary groups in Africa and other stuff like this as well.
There's not a PMC when it comes to North Korea. It's direct. These soldiers believe that they are coming to Russia to fight against the Ukrainians for North Korea's interest. It's not about it's not a private military corporation. It's literally an arm of the state. It's basically North Korean military units fighting on the Russian side of the border. Fighting the Ukrainians, particularly around the Kursk area. For the private military company side, it would probably be the Africans who have signed up to fight on the Russian side. Sri Lankans, Cubans have signed up to fight. Many of them in confused manners where some come because they want to, and then afterwards they say, oh, I had no idea what I was signing up for, but they're just kind of saying what they need to in the circumstances. Others seem to genuinely have been confused of whether they were coming to Russia for a construction contract, a gymnastics contract, some sort of student learning opportunity, and then they get to Russia and they're like, that's very nice. I have your passport. That's going to stay in my pocket. We have a conversation to be had about your future work endeavors in the country.
No.
It's been widely reported by the families themselves too, talking about how they were told, hey, they had a construction opportunity, they had this, they had that, and then all of a sudden they're in the armed forces because that's what the contract really was for. There's a lot of predatory military recruiting going on.
You're saying that's on the Ukraine and Russia side, is what you're saying, or
I haven't. There has been military recruiting for economic reasons on both sides. The misleading of people saying that, hey, there is people here giving you construction contracts, that's only been reported on the Russian side so far. When it comes to the economic side for the Ukrainians, you're mostly going to see Colombians, at least in my experience. A lot of Colombians come to Ukraine for a check.
So there's conscription on both sides. I think that's fair to say.
Yes, there's not conscription in Russia in the way that you get conscripted and now you're fighting in Ukraine. You get conscripted and you're going to be doing border guard work, probably. That's likely what they're going to assign you. The only conscripts that are forced to fight in Ukraine are those who are in Ukraine. So let's say the Russians take over a village and you've survived the Russians taking over and you survived the worst of the fighting. You can then be pressed into military service against your former neighbors, which is against the Geneva Convention, which Russia did sign on to, but they say it's all Russia, so they can do it. Whether or not the international community considers it occupied territory. The Ukrainians, they have conscription all the way.
Yeah, I mean, the footage of people being kidnapped in the white van is the only thing that runs through my mind when I think of people who have been conscripted. But I'm sure when you talk about all these different countries, we're not talking tens of thousands of people. I know North Korea, they sent in over 10,000 soldiers. Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
Yeah, they sent in quite a lot.
Right. And as far as Ukraine and these other people who are volunteering or being kidnapped, are we talking just hundreds? Are we talking several thousands?
It depends what group you're talking about. If you're talking about Belarusians, there's like a couple of thousand like Belarusians who view the war in Ukraine as an extension of their fight against Alexander Lukashenko, or the idea that Russia has too much influence in Belarus, and so they have their own individual reasons. There's quite a few Poles. I would probably put the Polish number at maybe like 1,000. Americans, there's hundreds of Americans in the country continuously fighting. I think the number of dead Americans is also I believe, like in the hundreds or something along those numbers, Americans who have died fighting in the country. And so on the Ukrainian side, it's usually, for most Western European countries, they're going to talk about dozens of people or a couple hundred people, with a few exceptions where it's a couple thousand because they have more interest in the direct outcome of the war.
Okay, so how many people actually have died in this conflict? Because I can't get the numbers straight. I know there's propaganda on both sides, so I have to take both numbers from either side with a grain of salt. But in your experience, or what you have actually researched, what would you put the numbers at for both sides? Ukrainians losing more, Russians losing more? How many? What's the numbers like?
Oh, the question isn't really about who's losing more. It's pretty universally accepted at this point that the Russians are losing more men, just due to the nature of the battlefield. They're marching forward. They're the ones that have to move forward. They're the ones who therefore have to put themselves under the drone threat in more instances. The way they move forward is through infiltration tactics, which are inherently high attrition tactics, where you essentially take teams of 2 or 3 people, you have them march forward. This is how you get these like insane drone videos to look at as an outside perspective, where it's just one guy wandering through a field. Why is it just one guy wandering through a field? That's infiltration tactics, where they essentially want to have so many people spread across so many positions that they eventually build up by crawling forward. And then in a team of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, once enough people have gathered, then they can assault maybe the stronger Ukrainian positions. But in order to do that, it means higher attrition. It means a lot of your guys just getting lost to drones, pedal mines, or whatever you could find out there in the high grass of eastern Ukraine right now. As for the actual casualty numbers, I've seen estimates on the Ukrainian side of about like 180,000 dead to like another 200,000 wounded, 220,000 wounded on top of that. That sounded like a number that was realistic to me. On the Russian side, it sounded something more close to 400,000 to maybe something 450,000, something in that range, with another possibly 600,000, 700,000 wounded. It's really hard though to estimate, because the Russians really don't allow like international investigators to like go in and like collect this data. I would say that the best bulk casualty, because these are very rough estimates, I'm going to be very blunt with you, would probably be well over 1 million casualties at this point. And it would not be far off to think that by the end of this year could be 1 million deaths.
Wow. And on you were just describing the Russian side. Ukrainian side, what are we talking about for numbers?
I think you said
yeah, I said about 180,000 to about 220, 230,000 wounded. But the wounded number changes because, for example, the last stabilization point I was at, people lost their foot-to-pedal mines. These tiny little green mines that the Soviets used to drop in Afghanistan. Kids used to think they looked like toys, pick them up, arm would blow off. But they look so tiny and innocuous, and they can hide in the high grass. A guy put his foot on it. He lost his foot. The guy next to him lost most of his foot. It was like a sock, what was left. And the 2 people next to them, they got hit with shrapnel. Now, those 2 people at the end that got hit with shrapnel, they might be able to go back out in the week, like a week later, depending about how bad the shrapnel injury is. If you just had a little shrapnel in the ass, you're going to be fine. You could be back out there in a week. If you've got shrapnel that's deep and to hit a bone or something, and you know it's deeper in your body, then maybe it's going to be something more long-term. And so a lot of these estimates change depending upon how they actually register wounded, what counts as a casualty, because the majority of people are wounded.
Okay, so you seem to be very familiar with the Ukrainian side. I want to ask this question because, there's been a lot of talks of like the West is going to send in like various like wonder weapon, whether that's a Storm Shadow, the Leopard tank. Yeah. Something that I've heard a lot about is the Flamingo missile. And I wanted to ask you about that, if you had any knowledge on that you could share with our audience.
Sure. So I think most Wonder Weapon reports are can I cuss here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, most Wonder Weapon reports are shit. For the Russian side and the Ukrainian side, mostly what you're reading, and if you start looking at it like this, at it through this lens, it makes so much more sense. Most of these reports are written up by defense companies in order to sell their weapons. And whether you see it on the Russian side or Ukrainian side, it's essentially a giant ad. Not even for you, just the idea that the general vibe about this weapon will bubble up to decision makers who will then bid on contracts. This is, of course, sometimes combined with kickback schemes when we're talking about Ukrainian and Russian politics, but that's how it works. The Oreshnik is not that impressive of a weapon. It is an old Soviet missile that they just basically show off like a toy every few months. They either don't have enough fuel for the thing or they don't have enough chutzpah. I don't know what it is. But the Oreshnik...
Is that the truth about the Oreshnik? Because the videos...
Yeah, it's shit.
Bad.
I mean, it's impressive on video, but it hasn't killed anyone. Like, it's damaged some cars. I think it damaged a parking lot. I think it damaged a garage.
Okay.
But it's been going on 5 years, and I do believe that if the Oreshnik could do something impressive on the battlefield, why haven't they loaded it up with thermobaric warheads? Thermobaric warheads, load up an Oreshnik, launch it into an area where you can do real military damage, but instead, every time negotiations come around, it gets brought out as if it's Victory Day parade and they need to make a statement. So to me, that's the Russian wonder weapon that I don't believe. On the Ukrainian side, there's a bunch of different examples of this as well. That's just the Russian example of it.
Do you think that one side, both sides, neither sides, are they looking to escalate or de-escalate? Like, what is the end game for Ukraine and what is the end game for Russia? Because I've heard all these things ranging from, like, they want the Donbass, they want to go all the way to the Dnieper River and beyond and take Kiev. I don't know what's true. You're there. What do you think?
Sure. Did you still want a description on the Flamingo, though? Or did you want me?
Sorry
Yeah.
about it.
No.
Go ahead.
No worries. I'm just I'm a motor mouth, and this is my wheelhouse. The Flamingo is not as good as American long-range missiles of a similar quality. I mean, it's not like developed to that level. But what the Flamingo does is it gives Ukraine the ability to launch a few of these heavier payload long-range missiles at Russian defense companies, and they have been able to make impact. Now, I would say that this is basically the little rocket that could. And they've jerry-rigged the engineering a bit, and I think a lot of the Firepoint press releases they've put out, like everybody who's in the know sees that it's not amounting to what they said it would amount to. But the fact that it has made impact and has further stretched out Russian air defense systems still has enough service that you could consider it a Ukrainian advancement in the long-range war. Because before, they had no weapon like this. Before this war started, the Russians said that they wanted the Ukrainians not to have weapons of 125 kilometers in length. Now we're talking about missiles having 1,000 kilometers in length. I mean, we're in a totally different range of capabilities now at the disposal of the Ukrainians, but it's not a wonder weapon because it's them taking their first step as an independent state into this type of weapon arena. And so, yeah, it has a lot of problems, which you would imagine that would come with that. The next question, I'm sorry, could you remind me?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So one side, both side, Ukraine, Russia, neither, whatever. Do you think that they want to be on the de-escalation path or the escalation path? What is their end game? What's the Ukrainian end game? What's the Russian end game?
I think that there's a short-term end game and there's a longer-term end game, right? Where the Ukrainians, at the end of the day, they want the Russians out of their country. And for Ukrainian leadership, that still includes everything that is occupied. That doesn't mean they want to achieve that necessarily right now. They don't see that as achievable right now. They probably knew that wasn't achievable back in 2023, immediately, even before the counteroffensive, which many people had warnings of it was probably not a good idea. The way it was conducted along 3 points, the idea that you were attacking the one place that the Russians know you're coming, and going to be attacking on. But I think that when it comes to the Ukrainians and where the Russians stand right now, the Russians feel that the United States has abandoned Ukraine, that the United States is not going to continue to send its weapons and support, that they can continue to engage in these negotiations while pressing forward on the battlefield to try to get a better position. That seems to be what they've done for the entirety of Trump's time in office, and that seems to be the pathway that they're moving forward on. So I would say for the Russians, I don't know if they need to escalate or if they're just at the same pace that they have been, which is to generally continue to try to build up the pressure. The amount of air attacks have escalated, but I think that is also due to the fact that this is the first time they've had it at their capacity to fire these many drones and these many missiles. So it's not an escalation through like a deliberate thought of now's the time we're going to use the weapons we've been holding back, Kamehameha level whatever. Like no, it's they're throwing what they now have at their disposal. So they've escalated through capacity, just like the Ukrainians have increased their drone capacity to launch more drones at Russia than Russia ever could have dreamed to launch at them. The Ukrainians seem to be in the public accepting position of freeze it along the line of contact, where they don't like the idea of solidifying any occupation. They don't like the idea of, not getting any justice when it comes to certain war crimes committed or XYZ, any of these important issues, but that the solidifying the line where it is right now would be better than the war dragging out. That seems to be the public negotiating position. And when you ask the general public, they seem to be comfortable with that right now. That doesn't mean we accept Russian occupation or XYZ when you ask them, but they're saying like we would just like the fighting to stop for the very least right now. So that is the position. On the Russian side, they make inherent demands for the loss of Donetsk and Luhansk, and there seems to be some reporting indicating that if they take these regions, or if they're even offered in negotiations, they could just say, okay, Kherson, Zaporizhia, it's in the Constitution, you have to give these areas back, which all of these are non-starters, but after the human safari, it's impossible to see any Ukrainian agreeing to that, so it puts us at a very difficult position for trying to get a settlement.
Wow. This is super eye-opening, I'm telling you, because when I look at it from just like a 10,000 foot view, it's so easy to miss all of these details, because when I tell you none of it is covered, I mean, absolutely none of it is covered. You have to go watch your X or your YouTube, or you have to go find an independent journalist to actually like say these things, because the other media sites, they're either curated or they just don't care. Is that what you're seeing with what's happening? Why, like, this should be the most reported one, because when you talk about 1 million dead by the end of this year, that's the biggest thing that people should be like, hey, we need to stop this killing, right?
I think it's a few things. I think it's partially the algorithm. It controls what you care about. It tells you what to care about. It serves it up to you on a plate, and Ukraine is not the hot dish anymore. Okay, it's not that sandwich that just released. It's not that new flavor, new musician, new whatever. It's not new. It's old. There was another international war in between it, and then there was another one stacked on top of that, with now the Strait of Hormuz. And so I think for a lot of people, the hot reporting or hot money was elsewhere when it comes to the API and the viewership you're going to get. This is not something I just direct towards mainstream media, by the way. This is something I also direct towards alternative media. Mainstream media, a lot of it went astray because it was motivated by corporate incentives. It was motivated by financial incentives. Gotcha. Alternative media is not like... you're completely protected from this incentive. You're completely protected from what's going to get that number to be bigger on your YouTube account, or what's going to grow your financial stature, what's going to rise your profile, what you can make an incendiary comment about in order to ingratiate yourself deeper in the algorithm while delivering a more shallow and more shallow and more shallow product, because you're not talking about something you understand deeply. You're talking about the flavor of the week. And so I think a lot of it is just the financial incentive that has rotted mainstream media has also now slowly rotted alternative media, and we live in a bleak time for media.
Yeah. The last question I have for you, because there's a bunch of things I could actually ask you, is I know I probably should have positioned this question better, like instead of being like, what's the craziest thing? I actually really want you to walk us through like what it feels like to be a soldier on the front line, and like, is it like you wake up and you've got missiles flying over your head? Because I know it's probably different for different years, right? But like, are they bored half the time? Are they terrified? Is the average person just sitting there like terrible morale, and he's like, when am I going to get off the front line? Is he shooting constantly? Are they, what is it like in your personal experience, plus what you know of talking to soldiers?
Okay, I'll talk about what I think about it from the soldier's experience, and then I'll talk about my personal experience, because the former is more important. The latter is, what I've seen, right? So for former, you got your salami, you've got your nonstop energy drink, you got an endless amount of vapes powering you through your day after you wake up, scrolling through your phone between whether it be artillery launches, mortar launches, FPV missions. Some people have books. Most people doom scroll. TikTok or whatever, it could be YouTube Shorts or whatever it is, people messaging their loved ones, texting and such, trying to keep in contact, mostly underground. You don't want to be above ground very often. The more you're above ground and you're out in the open, the more chances you have to die, either through shrapnel and an artillery bombardment, just spraying, some shrapnel in your direction or tearing you in half, or one of the FPV drones that is constantly patrolling, looking for any movement whatsoever to strike you and attack you. This is also true for night bomber drones, grenade dropping drones. You could step in the grass, which yesterday there wasn't a mine there, but today there is. And they drop them directly in the tall grass so you don't see them. So every time you step forward, you got to put your foot forward and move the grass a little, move the grass a little. And when you have to do that to get to position for 22 kilometers, 22 to 25 kilometers, which was my experience, at least in Truskivka, that can be quite a challenge. That can be quite difficult. And so I think when it comes to the the daily experience of a soldier, it's you live underground, you are sustained by, meat sticks, vapes, cigarettes, and doom scrolling, and energy drinks, lots and lots of energy drinks. When you come to the surface, it is to quickly do your work, whether it is firing a mortar and deploying your drone, and then immediately trying to get underground as soon as possible. The most dangerous part of your job is rotating in and out of position, because when you move, that's when you have the highest chance of fatality. That's when they can see your vehicle if you're driving on the roads, or see you walking from tree line to tree line, from building to building, whatever method you want to use. I've been advised different methods by different people. I went to Truskivka both ways to just see what both ways was like. And I gotta say, why on the ground is probably more terrifying, because you can hear the drones, you have to directly jump, you can see it 10 meters away. You bring much more attention to yourself with a car and a vehicle when you're driving around. It's just much easier to spot, and they know what roadways you have to go down to get to the positions you need to get to. So I would say that that's probably what the daily experience is like. When it comes to the audio sounds you're going to hear, constant drone buzzing, artillery in the distance, which we call thunder without the storm, because it's a constant thundering in the distance, but there's no clouds. It's a perfectly sunny day. And the grad bombardments is more like a more rapid boom, 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 because it's more of almost like a drum beat as it makes impacts onto the ground.
That I would say, so that kind of reflects probably what it's like now, but it wasn't like that probably early on, because there was a lot more figuring out what people should and shouldn't do, because it's the first time. Well, not really first time. They've been in conflicts before.
Well, but tanks got blown up.
Yeah. So
early on, it was much more like a traditional interstate war, like you would have imagined in the movies that you would have seen in your Call of Duty, up until maybe the last 5-6 years ago, before they started to actually experiment with drones in the more recent games. Where you could see tank battles, you could see people with RPGs jumping out and firing and hitting the tanks. You could see positions 500 meters away from each other, where you could see the other enemy position. You could say, oh, there they are right over here. Dylan, get in this trench. There they are. This World War II era machine gun is what divides us from them. Which, you could see just any amount of equipment brought out onto the field by territorial defense units, which are basically just local militias, local villagers who've taken guns, and they've been given authority by the Ukrainian government to defend their homes, which was my case for my first embed in April of 22 in the Zaporizhia region. We were spotted by a drone there, and we took 15 minutes to oh, what are we going to do? Are we going to do this? Are we going to do that? 15 minutes, you'd be dead 3 times if you waited that long in today's war.
Wow.
So now you said your personal, because that was the former. The latter is when you're reporting, when you're on the ground, are you dodging, grenades and stuff like that? Or are you further back? Are you right next to the soldier?
It depends. I try to embed with every level. I'll be at a stabilization point where they're bringing the wounded back, and I'll film that and film what that experience is like. It's psychologically for doctors, what it's like for the men who are going through some of the worst moments probably of their entire lives. In those moments, trying to report on it with some level of dignity. And in those situations, I'm not in much danger. Of course, that stabilization points have been hit, but I'm not in much danger. But I'm also in situations where, like my first military embed, I was 500 meters from the Russians, meaning that if they attacked, we were the first ones, our line, our little farmhouse, and a grain storage unit was going to be the thing dividing the Russians from, deeper into the country. And so in situations like that, that was pretty dangerous, but I wouldn't say it is as dangerous as it is now, because in the last embed, I mean, there was like an FPV 10 meters from my head, and my fixer had to shoot it down with a shotgun. And thank goodness my fixer had a shotgun in that situation, because if he didn't, I mean, it might have come back around. I just threw myself in the bush like it was my mother's arms, and it turned out okay. But that was just once, like multiple times going in and out. We had to get down, and thankfully I was with the Ukrainian cyborg. These are people who fought in Donetsk airport back in 2014. These are killers if there are killers. And he just set up like a turret shooting drone down after drone down, just as they were moving around in the area. And so if you're moving on the front line now, this drone threat is ever present. Whether you're an aid worker, whether you're a civilian, or whether you are a soldier, you have to deal with the threat of drones because they're just constantly looking for targets. And so I think that is the main difference, is now Ukraine and Russia has fully gone into a war of drone dominance.
Wow. I think this has been an incredible.
Sorry, last question. I'm sorry.
I got one.
We'll get two. We'll get two.
Segue. All right, two more questions.
I can take all the time you need. I'm perfectly fine.
One of what you're saying, have you had any personal near-death experiences being on the front line from something that
the drone, dude?
Well, no, I know the drone, but again, there's any infinite number of situations where or maybe one of your buddies who you guys are working with, or your crew, any near-death experiences to where you literally thought this is my last day or anything like that, or has it kind of been more calm?
I will say, when there was one soldier here and one soldier there in Druzkivka shooting at different drones from different directions, while my fixer is I could see they're running out of ammunition, so they're loading the bullets, putting it in, firing, taking it out, reloading the bullets. And I'm in a situation like that where it's well, we just run out of ammunition. We can throw the gun at it, but that's not going to do us much help. And so there's situations like that. But I think, honestly, in Kherson, I got very lucky because I was supposed to be in the boat that was hit by the Russian mortar, the 80-millimeter mortar adjusted, and the 120-millimeter mortar that they come in with. They start with a smaller mortar to see where they hit, and then the second mortar is with adjusted fire. It's in order to save ammunition, so they don't just use the biggest bombs first immediately. But it hit the aid boat that I was supposed to be in, and my good friend John Jones. I mean, he's like a nearly 70-year-old man who was a policeman in the Bahamas. What a cool job that must have been, boating around in the Bahamas as a boat cop. But he tried to put these services to help to get the elderly and the wounded and other people out of their homes, and they hit the boat as he was coming back on the shoreline. He got dragged away. Thankfully, the shrapnel ricocheted off of his bones, but I was supposed to be sitting next to him, and the bunker that I was told by Ukrainian police that was unlocked was actually locked. So I just had to hide between buildings as we waited for John Jones, get evacuated and get to safety.
Wow. So you've been there since basically the start of the conflict, or damn near close to it. And you mentioned it earlier, and this is my final question for the interview because it's something I'm very interested in. You touched on it. We'd be remiss not to talk about it. The Kursk operation, right? The counteroffensive into Russia. Can you explain that to people? Because you were getting into that a little bit, and I think it's important for people to know. Most people don't even know it happened anymore.
Sure, yeah. So I was supposed to be in that operation, but you make a deal with a Chechen, but then the Chechen doesn't deliver, and then you work around it and whatever. But I wasn't there. But I did a documentary in the Sumy Oblast, and I interviewed a lot of people that were there once they got back about the operation. And essentially what the Ukrainians did is they gathered up infantry personnel and armored personnel and had them just kind of hide around in the countryside, and they slowly built up their forces, while the message that was being put out by the government and by some counterintelligence was, oh, these are forces preparing in case the Russians start a new axis of attack. And so the Russians didn't properly prepare for if the Ukrainians were actually going to launch a major operation. And they then dropped jamming devices on the other side of the border to jam Russian drone activity. and then they hit a lot of the bases of command and for like the major center points of the Russian defenses, and had Ukrainian forces break across the border and invade into Kursk. This wasn't the first time the Ukrainians had raided across the border. I just interviewed like 3 or 4 days ago the head ideologist of the Russian Volunteer Corps, and talked to them a little bit about their raids into Belgorod and Bryansk and these other raids that got a lot less coverage. But this was the one that had the most success, where the Ukrainians were actually able to occupy Russian towns for an extended period of time. And what many people saw as Zelensky positioning and trying to grab Russian land in order to negotiate that land back for Ukrainian land, in order to increase their negotiating table, like the amount of cards they have, to use some Trumpian philosophy, to increase their amount of cards so that when they come to the negotiating table, they can say, hey, you know what? You want back this area in Russia? Give us back this area you're occupying in Ukraine. But then when the negotiations didn't really go anywhere, the extended stay of the Ukrainians just became more and more of a drain, really, more than any type of tangible military benefit. And so eventually they had to pull out after increasing pressure from both Ukrainian forces, Russian forces, and North Korean forces, which was not originally expected, I imagine.
Wow.
Yeah, I won't go into the North Korea stuff. Well, maybe that'll be my last question, because I actually really am curious about the North Korea stuff. As the North Koreans came into the conflict, I'm guessing they were ill prepared. A lot of them died, maybe didn't die. Are they still active? Like, what's the situation when it comes to North Korea with them being involved?
So a lot of them had to adjust essentially on the fly to this type of war, where they had been training all their lives for a war in the Korean Peninsula, and now they're fighting a war in Eastern Europe, with a lot of these people that you come up in North Korean military academy, or through the training system. You train and then you fight with the same people, and so you're training with your buddies, expecting to fight for some war of Korean liberation, or however they want to frame it. And now you're with your buddies, like on the border of Russia, fighting Ukrainian drone pilots in a war that is definitely not how they showed it in the propaganda films. When it comes to the type of targeting from drones, and early on, you can see a lot of North Koreans kind of getting taken out by drones as they wandered openly in the field, and they're kind of adjusting to this type of warfare. But through very bloody trial and error sessions, the North Koreans eventually adapted to this. The training of these soldiers adapted to this as well, where they're having North Koreans train other North Koreans instead of Russians who don't always know how to speak Korean, trying to train these people to the best of their ability. And so they have learned, just like everybody else has learned, and they now mostly do like border work. There's no evidence of them invading into Ukraine proper. I think that there might be some diplomatic worry that, well, the North Korean, you could say, right now you can make an argument, North Korean soldiers invading Europe, somebody could try to make that argumentation. But if North Korean soldiers are in Ukraine, it's a lot easier to say North Korea invades Europe. And I think that there might be some fear of that type of image.
That makes perfect sense. Well, we appreciate you coming on. We need to do this again. I also want to get him on like a bigger show. Just like, dude, you're insane. I think these things are super awesome. As far as where people can keep up with your journey, your journalism, like where do they find you?
Sure. So you can find me on Twitter at Dylan Burns 1776, DYLANBURNS 1776. If you wanted to. What was that?
I was just saying, our guy in the back, and our producer, Wes, go ahead and pull up his X account for us, please.
Cool. But if now that I give personal opinions on there, if you just care about my journalism and not about my personal opinions, Dylan Burns TV on YouTube is where I release my documentaries, and I write articles for offbeatresearch.com. I interviewed a soldier who's fighting Konstantinivka very, very recently for them. I'm going to be releasing an article on mid-range strike drones for them in the future. And I just released a documentary on air defense in Odessa, which is a very beautiful city, very historic city. We also film a lot of art from the city. We go to the opera house there. It's very beautiful. And so if people want to go check that out, I released that on Saturday. So people can go give that a view on Dylan Burns TV.
I think it's really fascinating, man. Just kind of like from a meta level perspective of all, like we're all young people, right? And I think young people are getting more like politically and geopolitically engaged, you know, in endeavors like real reporting, real journalism, people being there on the ground, you know. When I watch the news, when we watch the news, we see a lot of old people telling us like how the world is and what's going on. And oftentimes they're not the ones with skin in the game. So agree, disagree, whatever. I think that you have really a lot of integrity by being there.
Yep.
And that's a big call.
100%.
For sure. So I think that's very important. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
I appreciate you having me on. I think it's important that there's more independent journalists going and filming on the ground in these countries. I mean, mainstream press isn't putting war correspondents out there as much anymore. They find it much easier to just take people's social media feeds or whatever they recorded on their phone and just take that, show it on the screen, have some talking to come on and pontificate and pontificate and pontificate. But it's really important for people to go out there and, you know, put some shit on the line in order to get some reporting done. It really is important. So I hope other people get into the industry or whatever you want to call it.
100%. Well, all I have to say, man, is you just keep being safe out there, dude. Like, honestly, you're doing the Lord's work by just covering this in the first place and putting yourself out there. We want to be able to do this again, have you back on, get your latest reports on what you have seen since the last time that we have talked today. But we really appreciate you taking your time today.
Sure. My DMs are always open. My email's always open. Reach out at any time.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Dill.
Have a good one.
I always say it. It's true. You have the best guests.
Yeah.
When you watch the show,
fantastic.
You not have the best.
That was fantastic.
It was a great interview, dude.
It really was.
Yeah, it's like I was watching a podcast, you know, but like you're doing it.
Yeah, and he's very well spoken too, you know.
Sure. Well, I think it comes to like the key thing that my dad told me when I was like 8 years old is it's like rely on the information, and he's been there, so he has the information that he's seen.
Well, and what this makes me want to do is we should be doing this with other conflicts that are happening and finding
other people
as well.
Absolutely.
Like I want to probably reach out to Suleiman, find some reporters that he knows maybe that are out there in the Iran side. Maybe we find some people who are out there doing journalism on the United States side. But yeah, I mean, these things are important because this stuff is not going to be readily available for people if you're not just searching hard for it.
And that's the thing is like, I think a big part of what we want to do with Gray Area is we want to make it, you know, fun, engaging, entertaining to actually engage with these big subjects.
100%.
Because like who wants to watch, you know, some like empty suit, like he was saying, you know, rattle on or off. We're people that don't know and we're trying to learn. Right?
100%.
And I think that makes us just like the people watching. I want to plug really quick. I want to make sure we plug Gray Area Talks. Let's get the YouTube and Rumble up there because we got a lot of people on X, but we have a Rumble and YouTube as well. We really appreciate if you would go follow, subscribe over there. Everything is always linked in both of our profiles. That includes
the easiest way for you to do that, Wes, you can pull up Gray Area Talks, like the X account. That will have the link tree and with all of our links to the YouTube, the Rumble. Like I said, the X account right now, we're live on Rex's, but like we also stream on all of these different platforms.
We're almost at 5K. Let's go.
Yeah. Let's go. And we've come a long way, guys. So the whole purpose of this show, if you guys are new, because I'm sure a lot of people are here to watch Dylan, you know, and some of you guys are part of his audience. The whole point of this show is we're very different than other shows where we try to give people entertainment, but we also try to give you guys nonpartisan opinions and takes on society and go into deeper aspects of like any situation. We're not right leaning, we're not left leaning. We're like
we disavow
all of that.
Yeah, that's all false paradigm. Somebody old set that up, and you know we're not going to engage in it. We're Americans, care about our country, care about the world as well, because that impacts our country. And when I say entertainment, I don't want people to get confused. I want people to realize it's fun to be informed.
100%.
That's the thing, right? And like I'm so engaged all the time with the news, even though a lot of it is bad, because you know I want to know what's going on in this world that I live in.
It is.
Don't you? How do you feel about that?
Well, it's just like, here's the thing. You know, a lot of media right now is just a lot of slop, in my opinion. There's not a lot of people who are interested in having real conversations and getting down to the root causes of things. And that's something that we really push heavy on this show.
Sure.
And we also push the fact that you don't always have to agree with each other.
Absolutely.
And Rex and I will have debates here on stream.
Absolutely.
But then they're respectful. We can kind of see each other's perspectives and we can sometimes agree to disagree.
We're not trained to hate each other over meaningless bullshit, because like 99% of all the stuff about living in a great world where we can all get along and have families, we all agree on that. And that's everything.
100%. So, you know, while other people want to be polarizing in their speech and they want to have an audience very quickly, you know, we don't care if we slow burn, if we're on the right side of history, giving you guys the best available information that we have as we filter out a lot of the noise for you guys, as well as...
We got a great audience, man.
You guys are extremely loyal.
And we love you so much.
So we're live every Thursday, every Sunday at 7:30. Sunday is normally our special segment to where we are doing, you know, interview, news blitz, and then deep dive. So we're not done. This is just the start.
Just beginning.
Right? So just stay tuned with us. We're going to get into like the news blitz part.
Yes.
But I want to remind you guys, if you have not been here, I'm doing a deep dive after the news blitz where Rex is going to cover what's going on right now. The deep dive today is based off of whether or not we are in a worse time period than the 2008-2009 crash.
Yes, a lot of people responded to that when we asked that question. It's a good question.
And this is something that's being brought up from you guys because it's very hard to tell when you have a bunch of competing ideas about like what a real recession is and what is it on paper, but why do I feel worse than I did in 2008 and 2009? We're going to do a comparison, and I'm going to shock you guys with some of the things that I have found as I've researched. You know, you think you know something, but then you realize you really don't know as much as you do.
Sure, absolutely. And that's the thing, guys, is like this is an interactive show. So when you message us, when you add us in our comments, when you leave a comment just in general on whatever platform it is, we're looking for viewer listener feedback on things you want us to cover. Some of the original best deep dives, in my opinion, came from people like Honey Badger, for example. You know, you're asking questions in chat, you know, things you want to see us cover. We're looking at that too. So I think that's a beautiful thing about the show. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on the news blitz. I want to get it done in under 40 minutes. That being said, what you need to know about the current U.S.-Iran conflict, ceasefire, peace agreement, memorandum of understanding. Basically, there's probing going on. We're going, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you. And it's happening on both sides. The Iranians have hit a base in retaliation. The U.S. is interdicting tankers and continuing the blockade and trying to do attacks of their own. There's a lot to get into here, but I want to roll this clip of, hold on. You know, it's so amazing, you know, I can just reference myself from 2008 saying the exact opposite of what I'm doing now, but it's okay. Let's go ahead and roll the Don talking about what should happen to somebody that leads us into war under false pretenses. Let's go ahead and watch it.
Go ahead, roll it.
Nancy Pelosi, the speaker.
Well, you know, when she first got in and was named speaker, I met her, and I'm very impressed by her. I think she's a very impressive person. I like her a lot. But I was surprised that she didn't do more in terms of Bush and going after Bush. It was almost, it just seemed like she was going to really look to impeach Bush and get him out of office, which personally I think would have been a wonderful thing.
Impeaching him?
Absolutely, for the war. For the war.
Because of the conduct of the
war. Well, he
war.
lied. He got us into the war with lies. And, I mean, look at the trouble Bill Clinton got into with something that was totally unimportant, and they tried to impeach him, which was nonsense. And yet Bush got us into this horrible war with lies, by lying, by saying they had weapons of mass destruction, by saying all sorts of things.
Okay, we're living in the Twilight Zone, guys. Tim, really quick, what's your take on that?
I just ended up in like an alternative reality of pure hypocritical statements. Whoa.
Yes.
Whoa.
Yes.
I mean,
Tim, Iran must never have a nuclear weapon.
Yes. I mean, I was even talking to like even guys that are in the military right now don't even really get behind the whole weapons of mass destruction thing right now. I just had a conversation with my buddy just today.
Dude, it's insane.
You know,
it's literally insane. And the key thing is we went into the war because of an imminent threat. That was the reason. However, as Marco Rubio said the day after the war started, and you can watch the tape on this, the imminent threat was not the nuclear weapon that grew from Despicable Me was building, in the Iranian mountain. That's not what it was. It was that Israel was going to attack Iran. Iran was going to kill American soldiers in retaliation, and we wanted to minimize that.
Right.
So that's a lie. Do you see the lie?
Well, you know what? It confirmed it once Joe Kent kind of came out.
Sure,
I mean, he's the guy to find out whether or not they have nukes or not.
Right.
And those types of things that... frankly, are complete lies right now.
Yeah,
so, I mean, when he came out on the record, he said all that, and he stood by his word plus resigning. Dude, it's all the secret sauce you need to know.
Dude, 2 independent CIA assessments said they didn't have a nuclear weapon. Tulsi Gabbard sold or was selling T-shirts for $40 that said no war with Iran 2 years ago. Okay? And to add on to that additionally, I thought everything was obliterated in Midnight Hammer. And that's what Kent always says, is he says, it's over.
It's over.
It was already over.
We did our bunker busters. We sent those, giant B-21. Were they Spirit bombers? B-2s.
Yeah,
they were B-2s. Okay. I mean, at that point, that should have been end of story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's go to Joe Kent's commentary on that. I got to click on it because I'm the man with the mouse right now. All right, yeah, let's go to Joe Kent's commentary. The Fox News clip below is an example of the Israeli-influenced media echo chamber. President Trump's policy for Iran has always been no nuclear weapons, not zero enrichment. And really quick, this is the game that they want to play with you, right? Iran is a signatory to the Non-Proliferation Treaty. That means they have the right to enrich uranium for civilian purposes. Trump is trying to say, as like a boondoggle, that he can claim, I won the war, I got rid of their nuclear program. They have said they are not going to end that. Now, as to what happens to the enriched uranium, does that get sent to Russia or whatever, the 60%? That's debatable. Right?
Yeah.
And that's negotiable. But everything else is not.
Well, yeah. I mean, at a certain point, for civilian use, nuclear is one of those, like, strong sources of energy.
It's a national pride thing. They're saying basically we're a sovereign state. You don't get to say that we can't have this just because you say that it's too dangerous for us to have it. We can make the argument of, oh, maybe you don't want them to have it. The thing is are you going to go put on your Batman utility belt and go over there and freaking do it? You know what I mean? Yeah. So like in a perfect world, do you want them to have nuclear? Probably
I
not,
don't. But I'll come out on the record. I don't want Iran to have tactical nukes and the ability to flex that muscle.
Though. But the thing is like they want the right to civilianly enrich uranium,
which I think is a fair thing.
Yeah, I think it's a fair thing. The Israelis want zero enrichment. That's their red line. Also because they want to continue the war, because it is nearly impossible to enforce and is a non-starter for Iran and requires regime change, which is what this is. Lindsey Graham, Mark, we played the clips of what they say, what they actually want.
Yep.
But let's go ahead and just click on that Trump tweet for a second. I'm going to read the highlighted portion of it. It was agreed a long time ago, and despite all the fake rhetoric to the contrary, no nuclear weapons in the Strait of Hormuz will be open and safe. So they already agreed to that. And do you see how he has to move the goalpost to keep the conflict going?
Yep.
So that's pretty crazy. We'll roll the Fox News clip as an example of the propaganda.
The president gave them clear guidelines. The president gave them clear guidelines. We understand that to mean that the U.S. needs to go in there and tell Iran no enrichment, period. That is what we have heard from White House officials. Remember, a couple of presidents.
All right, roll the next one.
Well, when J.D. Vance says that the president gave them clear guidelines, we understand that to mean that the U.S. needs to go in there and tell Iran no enrichment, period. That is what we have heard from White House officials. Remember, about 6 weeks ago, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner were sitting there with the Iranians and said, the U.S. will give you all the uranium you want for peaceful purposes. You just can't use it to enrich a bomb. And Iran said, no. Now they are, of course, adding J.D. Vance to the equation. And so we'll see how things go. We don't even really know what the format is yet. They had indirect talks last time. These will be TBD.
All right, so they got a man in an empty suit to lie to you, and it's very tricky. So if you're an old person watching this, you go, well, the U.S. is just going to give them the enriched uranium, so why is that a problem? They're evil terrorists. They don't want to agree. The point is that deal means that they don't get to have a civilian program to enrich, period. And they're not willing to accept that. So it's not a real negotiating
okay, so
tactic.
that's
That
the
makes
key.
sense?
That's the key distinction, because you do have to.
see
Yeah,
what I'm
you
saying?
have to enrich it somewhat in order to actually use the civilian application.
And to call back really quick, not to pontificate on just this one portion, but it's really important for people to understand. I watched this video with my own eyes and I heard it with my own ears. Sue me. You cannot tell me that it's not true. Steve Witkoff comes out and says, we're very close to a deal, 3.5% enrichment. That's what's been agreed to. We're almost there. Played it on the show. Okay.
Yep.
Following couple days later, comes out of a room, no enrichment, no enrichment, no enrichment. Okay?
No enrichment.
So that means that our party, like we said, okay, this is a compromise we can make. This is a deal. Somebody else said, no, no, no. So it's super sus. That's my whole point with all of that. What's the next thing in the rundown?
So we've got Joe Kent, right?
We got more of him later. Can I have the mouse for a second?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go to this story. So there's conflicting reports about this, and people need to know about this. It's very important. Iran's president has reportedly asked to resign, citing a loss of authority within the country's ruling system. This is from Fox. This is one side of the story. I'll give you the other one. According to reports, Przevskin told the Supreme Leader's office that he and his government have been excluded from major decision-making, leaving him unable to fulfill his responsibilities. Blah, 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 internal power struggles, blah, blah, blah. Trump has repeatedly pointed to division, saying the regime is seriously fractured. Okay.
No, so I do actually, when I looked at kind of all the different factors, I think there is some truth. Now, there could be some propaganda and some exaggeration, but the Supreme Leader and that side of the government is not running the show as much as it is the IRGC is really the boss man. Because if you think about it, his son, Khomeini's son, was supposed to be the one that came into power after. We haven't. He is. We'll put air quotations, but I really think he's just a meat suit right now.
He hasn't been seen.
He hasn't been seen. I think he is in that critical condition. Well, probably stabilized now, but like he's definitely not anywhere fit to actually lead the country the way it needs to. So if you no longer have,
I don't know, but
well, I'm just saying, like,
no, I understand.
At a certain point, the IRGC also had a ton of power within the country itself. It's just the Supreme Leader was the person at the top, and the information and the orders trickled down from there.
The thing that's important to understand about all these guys that are in like the leadership positions in Iran is that they all fought in the Iraq-Iran conflict, right? And of course, the United States backed Iraq. So that's a big reason why they hate America so much. And Przevskin, he was not a combat soldier, but he was a combat medic, right? So he came out with this statement, and this is from Suleiman today. This is from Przevskin. This is what he says, and they say that he might quit or whatever. That's being reported in Western media. As long as I have life in my body, I will continue. Either we manage the arena with power or we become martyrs. We whose souls are not higher than the dear leaders and those who have been martyred so far must be on stage, and the stage must be managed. That sounds like I'm ready to die for my homies. That's what that sounds like to me. So I don't know. We'll see more because, hey, you know, he could resign or he could stay in power. We'll cover that as it develops. Let's go to the next one. The latest military action of the war. I want to read this to people. U.S. fighter jet fired missile at Iranian-bound cargo ship. And this is from CENTCOM, so we know it's legit. According to CENTCOM, the Gambian-flagged Leon Star ignored more than 20 warnings on Friday while sailing towards an Iranian port. A U.S. aircraft disabled the vessel by firing a Hellfire missile, those are expensive, into the ship's engine room after Leon Star's crew failed to comply. The ship is no longer transiting to Iran, CENTCOM said on X Saturday. This is the latest military action near the Strait of Hormuz, and it took place as peace talks with Iran failed to produce a breakthrough, despite optimism expressed by U.S. officials last week. And listen to this, okay? Because we all think we know this in our head, but you need to be reminded of the numbers, okay? And this is why a deep dive Tim's going to do is also very important. Iran closed the waterway, and the waterway normally handles around 25%, a quarter of the entire world's global seaborne oil trade, and 20% of liquefied natural gas LNG shipments to ships from hostile nations in response to the U.S.-Israeli airstrikes launched on February 28th. What does that not include? That does not include 40% of the world's sulfur. That does not include 35% of the world's helium. That does not include all sorts of other essential products, including food, that is not being transported, at least not fully now, through the Strait. So I just want to remind everyone of the grave situation that we are in. And no matter what side of the political spectrum you fall on, it is on everybody right now to be loudly and vocally anti-war. This is not to be accepted, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
Indeed. We'll go to the next one here. I was just reading him about this. So basically, a U.S. aircraft fired a Hellfire missile into a ship that was refusing not to be blockaded. All right, and this is the Iranian side. An Iranian ballistic missile strike on a Kuwaiti airbase within the past 24 hours caused minor injuries to several Americans and seriously damaged 2 MQ-9 Reaper strike drones. So I tried to get the full article. Bloomberg is gay. They paywall like just like the Times. It is what it is, but just want to show people. So like this is the poking and prodding that I'm talking about. Like, it's not a ceasefire in any way. What do you think?
Yeah, you know what when I think about these things, whatever is reported to the media and what we get is literally probably half of the story at any given point. And each one is trying to play this game of 4D chess with each other to see like, okay, well, who can move the needle to where you can convince the average American or whatever country you're looking at that's involved in this conflict to push them in a consensus about something. So when I see these things, they're more of like nothing burgers to me. Like it's a boy who cried wolf at this point for me.
It's going to be big boom when it starts again.
Yeah, it's more of the boy who cried wolf. Because as long as Israel and Lebanon are still in this conflict, I think this still stays open.
All right.
You know, that's really how I see this.
Okay. All right. So Trump told everybody, and I don't have the tweet, but this is from yesterday. He's like, you have to watch Mark Levin tonight. He's going to say a lot of very important things. He got everyone all hyped up to watch Mark Levin. And I tried to do it. Okay, I tried to follow the dear leader, Heil Trump, all of his commands, and I go to Mark Levin's website, and it's like a broken, busted thing that is like repeating ads for Gold's Gym.
What?
He has a Gold's Gym.
That guy.
I am a perfect example of human physical condition. I am in the best shape of your life, and you guys need to follow my diet. This is the optimal human form. I do four sets of Trump chin-ups. So I hit his balls right there as I come up. I'm very short, so it's very convenient. I can just grab onto it like a handle.
Oh, man. Oh, that's so funny. All right, let's go ahead and get into it.
Go ahead and play that.
Michael Oren, former Israeli ambassador to the United States. Michael Oren, I get the sense Israel is very concerned, very nervous how this works out because everything's at stake. This is an enemy that wants to blow Israel off the face of the map. That's why they're pursuing nuclear weapons. That's why they're pursuing thousands of ballistic missiles. Tell me, what is the mindset in Israel with the Israeli people and so forth?
Very concerned, Mark. I'll be very frank with you. I'm very concerned that if the regime is thrown a lifeline through sanction relief, through the unfreezing of frozen assets, you're talking about tens and tens of billions of dollars, then it will continue to fund Hezbollah, it'll continue to fund Hamas, it'll continue to build intercontinental ballistic missiles that have threatened us. And what I want to say to the president, if I had that elevator talk with him, as they talk about in Washington, where you get caught in an elevator with somebody for 2 minutes, I'd say to him, Mr. President, you have an opportunity to go down in history not as one of the great presidents of American history, but one of the great leaders of all time, the ultimate game changer. And I know it's difficult and under your immense pressures economically, politically, but stay the course. Stay the course.
Okay. All right. So what I'm picking up from what I'm watching, keep in mind why this is important. Of course, we wouldn't just watch Levin's show like this. Trump told everybody to watch this and that it was important information. They're literally saying, like, begging him not to take a deal. So you think this is over?
Yeah. No, like they're like, hold the line at all costs. Short-term pain for long-term gain, guys.
Dude.
That's the play here, right?
Dude. All right, I guess we'll play more of it.
Go ahead and play.
And run out the clock on these guys, because they have a clock.
And you know what else? Let's say my team loses the midterm elections in the House of Representatives, they're still not going to be able to stop the commander-in-chief, the president of the United States, under our Constitution, from doing what he needs to do and what he wants to do. War Powers Act, No War Powers Act, and all the rest of it, unless they intervene in a budgetary way and literally cut us off. But that's on them if they do it.
We can't have a situation where the war ends where people will think, well, America didn't see it through to the end, and we're going to have to make up in some way with Iran, an angry and wounded neighbor. That would be very bad for Israel, but I think for the entire Middle East and the world. Again, to the president, please stay the course. There are tens and tens of millions of people who are looking to you right now to do precisely that.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, not that sounding good to me. Me and Tim are doing some like show planning.
You want to just get into it so that way you have some time?
Yeah.
And then we can go back to...
Yeah, you know what? That's smart. Okay, so we just did a little bit of like current news roundup, what's happening right now. I got a lot of Joe Kent commentary because I did that Joe Kent interview and I got clips from it that I want to react to. But we want to get into the deep dive. I got to do some business stuff just for like 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah. So... give me 1 second.
No, you're good.
Here.
And why? No, throw it back up really quick, Wes. Throw it back up with the giant flag. That's so funny. Did you do that? Did you make that? All right, he made it. All right, King Wes in the chat. Roll Tide.
Dude, Wes is so quick on the keys there.
Dude, he wears a woman's brooch, and then he has like a giant like 4-inch American flag pendant pin. Like, sell me any harder. And, you know, I'd be a slave, basically. Like, I can't believe this shit. I can't believe this shit, man. But I guess, you know, to the boomers, it's attractive and they buy it. Trump buys it, which is like the craziest thing of all. He told people to watch that garbage. So keep in mind, we, the American people, want a peace deal. They, the ruling elite class, not even just one group, just all the money, all the power interests, they don't want that. So, or you got the Joe Biden coming out. Who are you being today?
I'm debating. I'm debating who I should be today.
Who are you gonna be today?
What do you guys think? Are we feeling military? Are we feeling doctor? I was thinking about the grocer today.
Because
just a average Joe, you know.
Honestly, like while you figure that out, well, when I put this on, when I put on the Trump outfit, it doesn't feel healthy. It's like the Green Goblin mask or the Black Spider-Man suit, right? Like. It starts taking me over, and I just can't stop talking about how wonderful Mark Levin is. Mark Levin, the person that majority of Americans vastly hate. I love him. I'm in touch with my community. I'm kind of losing the Trump today. The Trump today isn't too good, but it always calls to me. It says, "Oh, this is kind of funny." Okay.
I think I'm going with the average Joe here. You know, I'm just your local grocer. About to sell you your $30 eggs.
I am the soul of Donald Trump. I am embodying the straight. I should get a puppet. Oh, dude, I need a puppet. We need to get the Trump puppet.
I will look. Yeah,
right,
that's easy. We'll look into the Trump puppet for you guys.
Okay.
So
serving up some truth salad.
I'm serving up some truth salad. I'm serving up some overpriced eggs. I'm serving up pretty much recession, right? You know. So let's talk about this. Where are we? All right. So we all know about the 2008 crisis, recession, mini depression. And when we think about that, that's like our most immediate data point for us to be like, okay, this is what it felt like at a really bad time. But like now it's really hard not to compare back to that time period when literally it just feels like we are just spiraling.
Sure.
When it comes to a consumer standpoint.
Sure.
So let's look at this first chart, the unemployment, because this is where the story starts. And what you need to pay attention to here is, let me just pull this up. I need to.
You want me to handle it? I got you.
Yeah, just pull up that chart there.
Just give me the mouse.
So in 2009, the economy was actually breaking, okay? So unemployment hit about 10%, and people were losing jobs. You had homes going into foreclosures, banks failing. And so, you know, if we're asking which economy was a bigger disaster. It's not even close. 2009 was the bigger disaster, just from the stats and just from the numbers, right?
All right,
and so you can see that spike. The only other spike was COVID. We don't even count that because it went up to like 15%, but then they started with the PPP loans and the stimmy checks, and people were buying Jordans and able to survive. So we won't even count 2020. But let's look at number 2 here, and let's look at the consumer sentiment, because this is what really drove me to really start investigating and researching this today. Go ahead and click out of that real quick.
I got you. What's the next graph you want to go to?
We're going to pull up the consumer sentiment.
I got it.
Because we need to look at 2009 versus 2026. I made this chart, actually. And
it looks damn good.
And the reason why I made this chart is because I couldn't find a chart to represent what was happening. Now, consumer sentiment, if we remember, is at the lowest levels it's ever been. And that's just based off of like people's willingness to buy, how they feel the economy is doing. But look at this chart. Wow. Okay, so the top line is 2009. Okay, at no point does it cross below the lowest level of that 56.3? And this was at the peak, at the absolute peak of the recession. Wow. So this means that in May of 2026, people are feeling significantly worse consumer-wise than they ever were during the entire 2008 and 2009. It sounds backwards.
No, you know what this is? It's inflation and the lack of buying power, right? Because back then in the day, sure, things are really horrible, but you might still be able to afford, the dollar menu. Now there is no dollar menu anymore.
Yeah, do you remember like when you could get a basket of items, even in 2008 and 2009, you could get a basket of items still even in the midst of that recession. But now you look at a meal, what are you paying when you go out to eat?
I'm trying not to anymore. I mean, you're paying, $15, $20 for a meal if you're eating in a restaurant, and then anywhere between like $8 to $10 you get one item, one fast food item.
One fast food item.
One.
And it's less quality. It ain't even good.
Shrinkflation.
It ain't even good.
It's smaller.
Chipotle used to be the best, and now it tastes like fucking slop. I'm sorry. It doesn't taste the same anymore. The McDonald's burgers used to be like somewhat good. The fries, not slacking too much. They're not changing too hard. Sure. But all the food doesn't taste the same like it used to. So let's look at this other thing. So when we look at a recession,
which one?
Official recessions, okay? This is a different look at how the economy, because on the surface, there is the decision that the experts say that you have to have 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP in order to officially declare a recession. Go ahead and pull that up, Wes, so that people can see this graphic that we're looking at.
And the Great Depression lasted 43 months, according to this.
Right. So you had the Great Depression lasted 43 months. You had oil crisis in 73 that lasted for 16. The ones that are more recent that we can remember is the dot-com bubble lasted for 8. You had the 2007, 2009 lasting for 18. And so the average duration that we're looking at is 17 months. Now, it's not even the government that declares whether there's a recession. It is... What is that? Just scroll down a little. Yeah, it's this NBER, which I got to remember what the acronym is, but they are like kind of an independent group that kind of decides this. So an official recession is not just like everything feels expensive. It's about whether the whole economy is broadly shrinking. Right. So you're looking at like jobs, you're looking at income, production, sales, business activity, all of it, right? And so that's the disconnect, because the official system is asking, okay, is the economy contracting? And regular people are asking, can I actually afford my life? There's a very big distinction here, right? And so these aren't the same questions, guys. I mean, so when people hear we're not in a recession, it sounds like you're fine, everything's good, right? But that's not what people feel. Right? This is the real story. And the 2009 crisis is obvious. People were losing jobs. They were losing their homes. And today, a lot of people are still working. I mean, we looked at the unemployment rate. It's only around 4.2%,
Right.
So on paper, it can look fine, but regular people are feeling like they're falling behind. So now we need to look at, most people don't feel the economy through GDP. Like I said, they ask these normal questions. This is how we all feel, guys. Can I afford rent? Can I buy groceries? Can I save anything? Can I buy a house someday? Can I work full time and still live like an adult?
I'm joining you. Solidarity. Okay, we're flipping it around.
Who are we, Chad?
Yeah, flipping it around so it doesn't show the front because I kind of disavow the front now. What the hat says. But it's a nice red hat, I guess. So
yeah. So, and also you just think about it. It's like not the stock market either. It's not the headline. Like the politician is saying the economy is strong, guys. The Dow is at all-time highs. Do you remember that, Rex?
The Dow is at 50,000. The S&P 500. You don't pay attention to these Epstein files. The Dow is at all-time highs. That's what you need to pay attention to.
And then it just goes, like she cursed it. She like initiated the war and everything. Like,
right.
Good grief.
So now on paper, Americans should feel richer than they did in 2009. So let me break this down for you. So in 2009, the median household income was about $49,780. Let's just round that out to 50,000. So that's around $4,100 a month. It was roughly what people were making on average with a full household. Okay, so now the latest data puts our household income around $83,700, which is about $6,000 or let's say $7,000 a month. So the difference between those two prices, we're looking at like $2,800 more per month that people are technically making on paper than they were back in 2008 today.
And everything's way more expensive.
Right. So now that should bring us to this conclusion because that solves this mystery. They're like, oh, well, my income is raised, but like, if it got eaten by housing, food, car, insurance, debt, monthly bills, by the end of the month, that paycheck does not feel bigger for people.
No.
It just has more things pulling from it.
Well, it's insulting because like the thing that they'll tell you is like, just invest in the stock market. Half of Americans don't have anything in the stock market. So
right.
You're like, oh, well, better start now, buddy. Get in while the going's good. And people are like, what?
Get in while the going's good. No, you're right.
And it's smart to be an investor, and it's smart to save, and it's smart to do all these things. But in the greatest country in the world, you shouldn't have to gamble to survive. That's my opinion, but I think it's true.
That's well said.
Yeah.
That's well said. And we'll talk about the solutions because I really want to bring solutions for people because there's people watching right now that are experiencing this in real time. And I want to help you guys understand where the bigger problem is, right? So, this is where kind of the headline version of the economy breaks down. And so, like I said, the economy can look stable on the outside while your household. So now you got to think about like, where did the money go? And so, inflation slowed down, but prices have never gone back. And that is the real equation here. Okay. So you can go ahead and pull up that CPI while I'm going to talk here. Look up.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. Wes has got it up. So, this is kind of where people kind of get talked about like they're stupid and they say like groceries are too expensive, but they hear inflation's down. And technically that is true, but it misses the point, right? So inflation going down does not mean prices went back down. It just means that prices are moving more slowly, okay? So when you look at this CPI chart, it doesn't look like the line does not like spike and then fall back to where it was. It just rises and it resets, okay? And so this video is going to show you guys kind of what that looks like, but you're just seeing it. It's just going up and 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 up.
Exponential.
Right. And so let's go ahead and play this video, like why can't prices just stay the same? And this clip is going to kind of explain to you guys the frustration, of how inflation is used as a tool to measure things. And it is important, but go ahead and let's go ahead and roll that.
Inflation is causing stress. Bad news about prices in the grocery store.
Historically high inflation.
In 2022, much of the world experienced a period of uncommonly high inflation, with the US, UK, and Eurozone all peaking at around 10%. meaning that prices on average were a full 10% higher than 1 year before. Though that's probably not a surprise to anyone watching this. It's thankfully now closer to the normal range. It's still a bit.
Okay, so you can see, like, we reached 10% under the Biden administration, guys.
Right.
This is the part that, like, this is what made me vote for Trump. And
I made all of us vote for Trump, bro.
And you really, it wasn't just like something that was like made up in our heads. It was really bad because, like I said, inflation can cool like you're seeing on this chart, but that does not mean the bill is reset. That doesn't mean rent resets, insurance premiums don't reset, the electric bill doesn't reset. So you're talking about things stacking on top of each other. So let's look at these numbers here. Okay, you've got rent CPI is about 32% up since January of 2022. Since January of 2020. Bread's up about 57%. You've got ground chuck that's up about 50%. You've got electricity that's up 34%. You've got milk that's up 24%. And these aren't luxury items, by the way. This is just basic life.
They are now, but they're not.
They're not, right? And so, you can cut. You can cut back to us, Wes. Sorry. You can cut a subscription, but you can't stop ordering. And you can stop ordering delivery, but you can't opt out of like food, housing, electricity, transportation, insurance, and the main thing. And so those floors keep getting higher and higher, and everything keeps getting tighter. And remember, these things stack on top of each other because we didn't just suffer this in Biden administration. Trump didn't help either.
Sure.
He didn't help either.
He printed like 25% or more of all dollars ever in circulation in 2020.
Right.
So, yeah.
So they both were complicit in this. And then you're talking about a war that's stacked on top of it and shocks continuously to the market. That all hits your bottom line, right? So now let's look at the housing prices here because now we have to talk about like the American dream. Everybody knows about the American dream. But this is a key distinction between 2009 versus today. So let's look at median household prices here. And you can see on this graph, the existing home prices around 2009 was like 173K. Now by April of 2026, we're looking at 417,000. You're getting literally repriced in real time here. And if we look at the monthly estimated payment, because this is what's important, in 2009, the estimated principal and interest payment on a median home was about $810 a month. Guess what it is today?
Throw that stat at me one more time.
$810 for your principal and interest payment on the median home.
Oh,
now what do you think it is today?
Over 1,500 for sure.
It is 2,250.
Wow. So that's like 110%.
That's $1,400 higher.
Oh, man.
Now remember, guys, we only are making $2,800 more a month as an average family.
You can't pay
but
that.
Your housing price, just a half of that cost has just gone into housing since we've talked about this equation. Okay? And that's before taxes. That's before insurance. That's before utilities. That's before before repairs. That's before furniture, moving costs, all of those things. That's where the raise disappears. Okay? And so now we need to talk about 2009 really did destroy people who were already owned. But today it blocks out a lot of people who were never even able to get into the housing market and buy their first house.
Dude, just really quick. Like, I'm graduating class of 2020. And you get people like, well, kid, you just got to eat a bologna sandwich. And you just got to invest in the stock market. And you, too, can have a home in 20 years. And you're just like, who are you people? like we live in a nightmare. It used to be great. And the reason why it's a nightmare is because when we grew up, it was pretty cool.
It was pretty cool. That was the vision that our parents were fed from their grandparents because that was the American dream that was established in the 50s.
Yeah.
And so all of that has trickled down to where that is what America is. That is the vision that we have all been pushed for the last 70 years, guys.
No, 100%. And to just add on to that point, And if you look at this, and I hate Bill Clinton, but he balanced the budget. Like, we were not in debt in the 90s. And you think about that, you think about the culmination of the American project and the victory after World War II and just everything that we've done. It was all pissed away.
All pissed away.
And it's a great crime for the younger generation to have to deal with that, because we reached that point that, all the great civil rights leaders, political thinkers over the course of the history of the nation, they're like, 90s, 2000s, we should be good, right? Like when I grew up, we didn't have scarcity. We didn't have the racial animus. It wasn't a part of our society, Tim.
Well said.
And then now everyone's like, it's normal. It's like, no, the fuck it's not. Well, and that's what's so heartbreaking about all this.
It is.
Go ahead.
It is, and that's why people are feeling helpless, because it goes against everything that you were taught to believe, essentially.
Sure. Absolutely.
And so now, 2009 was a different world altogether, because I don't want to just keep this about the core things that we have focused on, which is inflation and the numbers and the stats, but we need to talk about technology as a whole.
Sure.
Social media, those types of things, because if you guys don't remember, if we go back to 2009, phones were a lot different. Go ahead and pull up this image, man, because the iPhone had not come out until 2008 going into 2009.
Right.
Okay, so there wasn't like the cool phone that you can go and
huge big ticket item.
Yeah.
I can
so go ahead and pull up that phone. We can take a look at these phones here.
Yeah,
these are the phones before the iPhone, guys. These were the same year phones where people are like, this was the latest tech, and no one had any idea that the iPhone was going to come out. You guys remember any of these phones? I mean, BlackBerry was the marquee at the time, but HTC was coming out with the phone. You're talking about you send a text message, you're flicking up your phone and you're doing. I used to have one of these phones.
Don't they look beautiful now, bro?
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't they look like pieces of art? And like, you think about, weren't we better off? Really?
Yeah.
Like, seriously, guys.
I mean, tiny screens, physical keyboards, limited internet. I mean, your phone was mostly a phone.
It was a phone.
Maybe it had music, maybe it had email, but if you could browse the internet, you would be amazed. Yeah. So let's go ahead and play what the iPhone looked like when it first came out, dude. Go ahead and pull up that video, Wes, because the ad. I mean, this is revolutionary. This is what changed our entire existence, and you guys need to bear with me because it's all going to come full circle for you guys to understand why I'm bringing up the iPhone here. Go ahead and play this clip, Wes.
What's great about the iPhone is that if you want to check snow conditions on the mountain, there's an app for that. If you want to check how many calories are in your lunch, there's an app for that. And if you want to check where exactly you parked the car, there's even an app for that. Yep, there's an app for just about anything, only on the iPhone.
Guys, I don't think you guys understand how revolutionary this phone was. This is literally what changed the entire course of history forever. Okay?
Because created us as people, basically.
Literally, right? Because it sounds really funny right now, like there's an app for that. But at the time, think about this. Like, the app went from a tool to a place where now you could like eat, shop, you could borrow, you could compare, you can pay and get advertised to, because all of these things didn't happen before. Like, how are you going to do half of these things on a flip phone? You used to have to MapQuest. You guys remember MapQuest? Because I do. When we wanted to go somewhere, it was, hey, let's go on a MapQuest, pull it up, and figure out the directions. And you got mom in the passenger seat trying to give dad directions while he's driving and say, well, turn right at this amount of time, right?
Right.
So now, the phone became all of these different things all in our hands. And, unlike the old mall where you've got like where you got all these different things, 2009's, sorry, let me gather my thoughts here. Today's ads live in your pocket, essentially.
Yes.
This is a key distinction because the iPhone did revolutionize things. And so now your life did get more expensive in real time, but also the environment around your spending changed too. And that part is what matters. And this is where I'm trying to highlight. So America literally runs on buying. This is where the story can get too simple because people hear this and they say, oh, well, people just spend too much. And sometimes, yes, this is the case. And some people do spend recklessly, but there is a hidden machine that also operates. It's the consumer that's at fault, but it's also the companies on the other end. And so America's not just a country where people buy a lot. It's literally the economy. So let's go ahead and play this video here. And it's going to show you kind of the consumer economy. And I want you guys to bear with me. This is all going to make sense in a moment as I tie this up in a pretty bow.
Americans are the best consumers on the planet, and it's really not even close. The runner-up is China, and they spend less than a third of what we do in any given year, even though they have almost 5 times as many people. It might not always feel like it, but by global standards, we are incredibly rich. We love buying shit, and we aren't afraid of going into debt to keep doing it. More of our economy depends on the consumption of goods and services than basically any other major country in the world. But this has to have a limit, right? As a direct result of our own insatiable desire to consume, our household savings rates are now the lowest they have ever been, and high-risk, high-interest consumer lending has surpassed $1 trillion. That doesn't include things like car loans, home loans, student loans, medical loans, or informal lending like buy now, pay later, which are also approaching all-time highs. So what is going to happen to the best consumers on the planet if they can't afford to consume anymore? And more importantly, could we solve all of our problems by just buying less shit?
The ocean of debt is getting deeper, but there are indications that some are doing a better job treading water.
Americans taking on more auto loan debt than ever before. It's probably because they're just rejoicing in the fact that they can get a car again.
Holy bejeez, I don't know if I can do this, but I need the car.
Amazon, Target, and Walmart are already offering discounts to consumers.
Don't make enough money to meet the minimum cost of living in New York City, and nearly 80% of households are considered housing burden, which means more than 30% of household income is going towards rent.
Okay. So Americans are basically getting 2 messages, guys, at the same time. As a citizen, you're told you need to save money and be responsible. But as consumers, literally you're surrounded by a system that's saying, okay, buy more. We need you to upgrade, subscribe, finance it, click now.
Premium.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying premium.
Right.
Yeah,
and that is the conflict, because families need margin, right? You have to have a little bit of money at the end. And so the economy needs spending at the same time. And so these 2 basic things are now colliding. And so,
well, Timmy, you couldn't get your toy this year because, well, Iran must never have a nuclear weapon. It's Christmas. Iran must never have a nuclear weapon.
Right.
That's like literally what they tell you.
Ooh, and Ashley's already ahead of the ball here. She already knows where I'm going with this. But now these 2 worlds are colliding, and, the basic cost of life rises, but the whole system pushes you to continue to consume. And so households get squeezed from both sides. And so, you're basically punished if you cannot afford a life, but you're pressured to keep spending anyways. So now let's talk about the subscriptions, because everything has now become a monthly bill. Okay. And so this is one of the biggest shifts from 2009. Let's go ahead and roll this real quick.
They realize that everything is more profitable for the companies if you can transform everything to some form of subscription service.
To this vision, we're moving from ownership to access.
We're not buying things anymore. We're not buying products. We're not buying stuff. We don't buy DVDs. Instead, we subscribe to services like Spotify. We don't really buy software and install it and deal with the servers. Instead, we subscribe to things like Salesforce and Google. How far can this business model go? Can this really go to the entire economy?
Let me ask you a question. How many subscriptions do you have? Probably too many to count, right? Don't worry, most people do. And there's a very good reason why. The amount of subscription service companies has exploded in the past decade. But the question is, why? It might make sense to have a gym subscription, and streaming movies is much more convenient than buying DVDs individually. But now there are companies that will sell a subscription to basically everything. You can buy a subscription to cars, shaving equipment, groceries, video games, plane tickets, and even a place to live.
You can get a subscription for that. Literally every product, every digital product you could ever want, any physical thing you could ever want, there is literally a subscription service for that.
BMW recently rolled out a new subscription service that lets you turn on the heated seats in the luxury car you just purchased from them. A startup here in San Francisco is offering...
Come back to us.
Come on, man. Are you serious? You cannot be serious. You're gonna buy the thing and then you gotta lease features
just to heat your seats. $18 a month.
What about the windows? You know, is that $5? Is that the basic package? And then of course you got the premium plan and it lets you heat the seat. Man, I just want to own something if I buy it. You know, honestly, and like that element of ownership is what's being taken away.
Yes,
right?
no, you're 100%. We moved from ownership to access.
Right.
That is the key distinction here. You know, you used to buy software, now you subscribe. You used to buy DVDs, now you subscribe. You used to buy music, now you subscribe. And so you used to buy one product, and now companies have turned it into a recurring charge. Didn't you cancel a bunch of subscriptions recently?
Yes, absolutely. And then you have to call the bank. And you have to be like, and of course you have to contact the merchant after and whatnot, and cancel the contract and whatever. But the first step is calling the bank and saying, hey, afuera! Like, get out. Like, no more billing for this bullshit, because they make you sign up for the plan and they make it impossible to get out of it.
They incentivize. Are you sure we can give you an extra 40% off this month and then keep charging you at a regular rate?
Dude, I was getting like food delivery here. I was getting factor boxes here. And when I went to cancel my plan, you literally have to go through like 20 different, like, just offer. And I said, I'm broke. Like, that's the offer. I want to leave, please. And like, you're missing out on so much. And I'm like, am I missing shit? And then you start to think, and you're like, maybe I don't cancel it or whatever. And that's how they got you.
That's how they got you. Now, do you guys see the bigger picture I'm trying to point here? In 2009, keep in mind, most people had basic lives. This is like before the inflection point of like consumerism really popping off and people like getting a bunch of subscriptions and stuff. You essentially had bare minimum things that you would have, that you would buy, and you would know what your budget. There weren't these like extra things that you were like, damn, I need that, or like in your face thing. Because now the second part of the equation really is the social media, when you combine these two together, okay? Because in social media comparison, let's go ahead and pull up this number. Let's pull up the social media timeline for the adoption. It's all making sense now.
Really quick, you know, I'm thinking about unnecessary expenses. I needed to buy the Stormtrooper skin for Fortnite. that was a mental health thing. That's like paying for therapy or something. I had to have it. All right, we got it up now. The social media timeline adoption.
Right. So
social media users identified as a percentage of the population.
Now look at 2008, 2009, 9.2% to 10.4%. Okay. Look at it today in 2025. You're looking at 63.9% of people around the world are using social media.
Oh, this is global?
This is global,
okay, I was like, yeah, maybe that's low, old people,
whatever. This is global, my guy.
Wow, everybody's got a phone.
Everybody's got a phone.
Yeah, whether it's some, you know, like cheap Android they made in Cambodia, or whether it's, you know, a fat American on the iPhone, everyone's on the device.
Right. I mean, in 2009, social media did exist. I mean, Facebook was big, YouTube was growing, and Twitter was around, but it was not the same like full-time environment that people live in today. So, I mean, the comparison is the machine is everywhere. And now you see people's vacations, you see their houses, you see their cars, you see their lifestyles all day long, and the algorithm does not reward a normal life. Like, no one wants to see you just like picking up groceries today. No, they're like flashy Lambo, me now, I like you, right?
Exactly.
And so, you know, it's image. And so also, you know, the reward is like, it's like the most clickable version of life. So now we look at the equation. It's like the best trip, the best body, the best kitchen, the best everyday life. You compare that to your life, right? And
everyone sees it.
Right. And so then your rent, your grocery receipt, your car insurance, your bank account, you know, all of these different things. So the economy may not be crashing, but social media can make it feel like people are losing, and the financial pressure becomes real. So it's like there's a comparison pressure here. And there's also, because we talked about sentiment, right? Sentiment is how you feel. Social media is contributing to one of these reasons for why we are feeling this way at the same time. Okay. And then you couple that with how shopping has now changed because of social media, plus the subscription, like I was talking about, and you get these things called like TikTok shop.
Right.
Let's go ahead and play it because the algorithms have now started to change. So let's go ahead and play this clip real quick.
really the core of what we're doing.
What sets TikTok Shop apart from other social commerce apps is how it integrates shopping into the social media experience. Using its existing social algorithm, TikTok creates a closed-loop shopping experience. Experts coin shoppertainment.
It's the ultimate in word of mouth and trusted selling, right? You follow someone, you trust them and the products that they're providing, and especially in live stream, you get to see it in action, so it's not static.
If you've been on TikTok recently, you've probably seen these. These are shoppable links. TikTok affiliates use them to connect products directly to their videos, getting a cut of the sales made through their link, allowing creators to monetize TikTok Shop even if they themselves aren't a seller.
I am currently generating about $500 to $1,000 a day with TikTok Shop as an affiliate, not a seller.
This also keeps potential buyers in the app ecosystem instead of linking out to an external website.
TikTok added more amenities to link out to an e-commerce site and buy those products, or even they created ad formats where you could buy products in TikTok. So the commerce experience evolved on TikTok.
It's this creator-driven marketing that has become the linchpin in TikTok's strategy and spawned entire careers for affiliates like Lexi Rosenstein.
I was the kid that would stay up at night watching beauty YouTube videos, and I feel like because I watched that so much, it kind of conditioned me to be able to make content like this. It's not brown, it's not red, it's just the perfect statement lip. I kind of got in early, but you essentially create your content and then you get to scroll through the TikTok Shop marketplace, see if the products that you like are in there, and you can tag them to the video or the live stream. It's not like you have to scroll on TikTok, oh my gosh, someone told me about this product, now I have to go to Google and find it there. It's just, oh, it's right here, I could buy it right here in app.
But the biggest weapon in TikTok's arsenal is its algorithm. E-commerce apps like Amazon use algorithms to make assumptions about purchasing habits. You bought a pair of rock climbing shoes, here's a suggested purchase of more rock climbing gear based on other users' purchases. It works for Amazon's purposes because you're likely already planning to spend money when you open the app.
When you go to an Amazon or in a marketplace, if the algorithms and the data hyper-personalizes the experience, as soon as you log on, this is what you bought last time. This is what's on your shopping list. People who bought this, who bought that. That algorithm drives 34% of their sales.
TikTok, on the other hand, treats advertising as content, utilizing its existing social algorithm to make decisions about what you might be interested in, based on your content viewing habits instead of your past buying habits.
Our systems actually suggest content based on preferences from the users and their interactions on our platform.
It's your viewing history, it's your purchase history, and it's the amplification within your network that's driving that personalization.
An estimated 43% of TikTok users made at least one purchase on the platform.
Wes, cut back to us. So, yeah, and this is where I'll summarize everything for everybody, right? The bigger picture that I'm trying to get people to understand is 2009 technically on paper was worse. The difference that's happening now is you have a combination of inflation, social media, the invention of the iPhone, and the ability for people to actually have advertisements, consumer, like being able to buy something. It used to be a lot more difficult to buy things, by the way. You used to have to like pull up your, you'd have to, if you had dial-up, God, Lord knows what, when we had dial-up, it was a pain to get on the internet.
I got a note. I got a note to add to this. So like after everything, all the information you've taken us through with the deep dive, it really is that thing as to where it's like this, it's this effect where everyone has this comparison. Right? Everyone's comparing themselves to everyone else, and everyone wants to have this buying power that just isn't available. Whereas people in the past, I don't think they were in that. It wasn't as hyper competitive, and it was a different economy.
It was different. Like you didn't feel the need to buy as much and just be okay with what you had. So the margin of error, like let's say you overspent as a consumer, even back then, you had a bigger margin of error because you didn't have to worry about inflation stacking up. We actually had deflation. It was like minus 0.4%, where prices were coming down in 2009. and you could actually go out, like the job market was terrible, but like you didn't have to worry about, you know, your rent being significantly higher or your home price being like out of control.
The essentials, as long as you didn't have crazy mortgage or something like that, the essentials were manageable.
They were manageable.
They're not manageable anymore.
That is the key distinction here, guys. And so when I was doing this, I didn't want to take the approach as like, you know, consumers are just lazy or Americans are just lazy and they don't know how to like control their spending. But part of it is the equation. Like people are not being responsible today.
It's also, it's the doom spending, man, because like the world is so bad and the only dopamine people get is from buying shit.
So, and the companies have gotten so smart to where they know how to play on your psychology more than they used to back then. They have so many more techniques. People are struggling to be disciplined. We have a discipline problem at the same time, as well as our government making their own decision. And when it comes down to discipline, the onus is kind of on you, even if they are preying on your psychology, because it's called arming yourself with information and being financially responsible, because we are also in a generation to where we have more access to information than we ever had in the entire history of the entire world.
No, totally. And I want to dovetail off that. And that's why we do the show. And that's why we want to get better at doing the show. That's why it is also important. That's why I said it's fun to be informed. Look, it was screwed up and wrong that the older people didn't teach us about how to survive. Okay, that was screwed up and that was wrong. Them just telling us, hey, everything's going to be great as it falls off a cliff isn't exactly preparing you for the real world.
Yeah,
right?
It wasn't structured into the society.
Thing is like, you're going to be able to get a job. You're going to be able to go to college. You're going to be able to, you know, work at this place for 10 years plus, whatever. You're going to have family, community, all of it. And you're like, okay, I'm 19. I have 3 jobs. I have all these expenses. My rent, you know, is like $1,500 a month. Just giving an example. Whereas back in 2007, 2008, if it's that young person just trying to survive, they're not going through all that.
Yeah, and they're choosing not to do most of those things because one, either the product doesn't exist for that.
They're not, the grifting is not available.
The grifting is not available. Yeah. But what I really want to focus on here for you guys is like when we talk about consumer sentiment, it is because of all these factors combining together, and it's about, okay, people feel like it's worse. But like the only way to combat this, like we can't control really inflation. We can't really control whether our country goes to war. But what you can control is like not eating out every night if you are working a job that's only paying you like $3,000 a month. And I have plenty of friends and people that I know who do that, right? I have people that I know.
I was doing that. Okay, not to that extent necessarily, but I was spending way too much money buying cheeseburgers every day. It's true, cheeseburger like $5, whatever, but still buying them every day. I've realized now that like that's financial abuse.
Right.
Like you can't do that.
I have people who have like $500 worth of subscriptions a month that don't actually benefit their lives in any way. It was just something like, ooh, I really like this for the day, and they just completely forgot to either cancel it or they didn't even know those subscriptions existed.
I was paying for 11 labs, bro. I don't use voice AI. Like come on.
You know? Right. And it's because of that one-time trial situation, but like it is, you know, not having a bunch of subscriptions. Like people think they need more than they actually do is where I'm getting to the point.
No, absolutely.
Okay. And so when we talk about investing and we talk about saving, I know those things are hard because they did not teach those to everybody as a kid. School doesn't freaking teach you that stuff.
Right.
They tell you go study math and go study science, go study freaking art and history. And those things aren't necessarily going to move the needle on whether you make the right decisions today. And so a lot of this comes down to people didn't have the right system in place to teach them how to be responsible.
And they should teach you that in school.
Right.
They should teach you civics, economics, like budgeting. Like these should be things you learn.
And the whole point of the difference between us and Asian countries is Asians have this integrated into their entire existence as a being to where like their parents, their grandparents all taught this whole financial literacy to each other. So no matter what happens in their government, whether the economy goes down or up, some people do suffer, but most people are prepared because they either had like ready for hard assets that they bought, like gold, and like they knew to save for a rainy day. Whereas the average person is like, well, I'm here for a fun time, not a long time.
No, exactly. Like the Americans, like, I got a gun, I got a credit card, I got big belly, and it's time to spend.
Yeah, I had a friend who's Asian. He got laid off from his job, but because he had the principles of saving in mind for like his entire, he was able to walk through it because he had like over a year worth of expenses. But also,
I don't.
But also, to his credit, he makes more than me, but he was spending less than me because he could get by with less. You know, he felt like he didn't need to have the little extra fancy thing or get the little premium upgrade for something that didn't have any real impact to his life.
And I know you're wrapping up the deep dive here about trying to step on it in any way, but like that is the key point. You look at it, even like our governmental system, right? We get a new guy every 4 or 8 years. Other places, that's not the case. And you have this continuity of culture where America's greatest strength and its greatest weakness is how young of a country it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so like
that's a good point.
We're 250 years old, all right? China, 4,000 years old at least, all right? Same thing with Iran, Persia, whatever you want to call it, right? Russia, for example, has been around for 1,000+ years. So when we get into these, foreign policy entanglements and these wars, and we get into these domestic situations at home, we're like bubble boy, basically. Like we don't really have anything to hold on to. So we're just kind of like floundering, panicking around. Yeah. Whereas if they're suffering, you're like, well, we lost 30 million people in the Great Famine or whatever. It is what it is.
It is
right?
what it is.
Whereas like we start crying, we start looking for, the weapons. So like, exactly.
Give my gun.
Power went out for 30 minutes. Like that's not how these people roll.
Right. So the last thing that I want to do, because I want to bring kind of like a little bit of solutions here. It is really hard to save in the current economy, okay? And I'm no way like affiliated or sponsored by these two particular apps that I use and that I have recommended people.
I got Acorn now.
Okay. Acorns is the #1 thing that I recommend to people in general if they are looking for something in order to have a nesting egg. Because the problem is when you talk about attention economy, people want things fast and instant.
Sure.
There is no such thing as getting rich quick. Consistency and slow growth over time, over like 15, 20 years is actually the key here. You were better off instead of like trying to game the market and spend, 10 grand at that point. You would have made it further had you just done $5 a day in a simple index fund and allowed that baby to just pop off over, and you would have ended up with like 50 grand.
Right.
Okay. So what I want people to do, and this is not financial advice. You obviously want to consult your financial advisor if you have one. But what I recommend to people, and I've put my family onto this, I do it myself, is there's this app called Acorns. Okay. Essentially what it does is it takes your money when you go and spend something. Let's say you buy it for $1.50. Okay. What it does is it takes the amount of money and it rounds up to the nearest dollar, and it takes that money and invests in the market. So if I bought something for $1.50, 50 cents to get to $2, it takes that 50 cents, throws it into account, and you're able to be in the market in real time. Now, with that being said, there's also another thing that I do with Acorns. I also have, this is me personally, I have $10 a day that comes out of my account automatically. It's called unconscious spending and unconscious saving and investing.
That's what I have it set to as well.
Right? Because I realized I can spend $10 a day on food very easily. It's easy for somebody to pick up the bag of chips and go get a soda and get $10.
$10.
Right?
Yeah.
And what people realize is as you have those roundups plus the $5 to $10 a day that you would be spending anyways, you will find that account over the course of even like 5 years, you might have just like $10,000 all of a sudden without you even realizing it. And that's money that's in the marketplace where it's actually making money on top of it, like these rich people are doing, where it's compounding on top of itself.
And this is not an ad.
This is not an ad.
We've been doing. I adopted this. I've been doing the $10.
It is not an ad. When I tell you, I did this for my sister when she went to freshman year of college. I said, you're going to do this. I'm going to start you off with your first $100.
Right.
And I'm going to have you invest in Acorns. By the time now, which she forgot that she had the account, 10,000 plus easily in that account. Just from like not even being conscious and doing anything. She was doing the bare minimum. Okay. And if you allow that to grow over time, you hold that for 30 years, that's going to compound to 100,000, 200,000 to $1 million, depending on how much you put in. And it is just the easiest thing possible. And in the case of like a very big emergency, you can technically withdraw and close the account and take your money out. But I recommend people to treat it like it's something that they never saw before and that it doesn't exist. Okay.
Right. And when you need the resource, it's available for you.
Okay.
And that's something that I've experienced. You know, like I cut my warehouse, right? Like I'm not doing that anymore, and that saves me so much on overhead. But like you don't realize, you know, the amount of spending that you're doing.
You
right?
don't.
So when you put something like that in play, and it kind of like makes it like, okay, if I'm spending money here, at least some of it is going towards this positive thing. It kind of reframes, you know, from wasteful to be like, hey, you know, like while I'm doing this, I'm also doing that.
Yes, exactly. And it's an easy way where you're not worried if the market goes up, down, whether there's a crash 1 month or 1 year. You're averaging over the course, and it always goes up and to the right when you talk about these S&P 500s and indexes. Now, the second app that I'm going to recommend to people is, well, yeah, she's asking, what about dollar devaluation? Isn't it better to invest in gold and silver? Well, the best part about this is you diversify your portfolio. It isn't just the American market you're investing in. I have mine set to what is called like a medium aggression. And essentially, half of my money is in the S&P 500, but then I'm also investing in. It has it set out to you where you can invest, where you're investing in global markets. You're investing in other countries' stock markets where they have their own independent. You're also investing in long-term bonds.
What's the other app?
ETFs. The other app is an app called Rocket Money. It used to be called Truist, Bill, but essentially, you're plugging in your cards essentially that you're spending money on. And it's like a budgeting app, essentially. Okay. And how it works is it takes all of the information of like what you're spending and it shows it to you. The best part about it isn't even just the budgeting. It's catching the subscriptions that you don't know that you're paying for every single month. What it does is it looks at, okay, this is coming out regularly every single month. It is a subscription and it brings it up to your attention. And then it can also help you on your behalf if you can go cancel this subscription for me. I haven't really done it that way, but I've definitely caught a bunch of these pesky $10 subscriptions. I had no freaking clue that I was spending money on.
It would have been easier to use that than to have gone through my bank statement.
Exactly.
For sure.
Going through your bank statements, you have no idea, but this catches it because it looks at all of your transactions, and then it tells you based off of that. So that's the end of my deep dive. You don't have to download these apps. These are just things that I care about. I'm not sponsored by these people, but they are little things that you can do to arm yourself.
Right.
And doing something small is better than doing nothing and just being black-pilled.
Right.
So I know you got to do your thing.
Yeah, so I got to go do. So here's the thing. Me and Tim both work full time. We do this show. We love doing the show. We want the show to grow so we can just do media all the time and really do the best stuff in the world for y'all. But here's the reality. Like full-time work, 24/7. I've got to go deal with the Shopify issue. I've got to downgrade one of the apps I'm using because it's way too expensive. And the bill is literally at like midnight. So I've got to go get that handled. I got to go pass some credentials off and talk to the team or whatever you want to call it. But I got to go talk to the team and go handle this. So Tim, I've got a lot of really thought-provoking news here. I've got a little bit more from Mario Newfall about Trump's amended peace plan and then Iran statement on that, which is pretty brief. And then you were talking about Lebanon earlier. Ben Gvir, of course, the Israeli defense minister, he's calling for security minister. He's calling for more operations and attacks. And then I've got this video of like an obvious Fed, a guy that's wearing like a Persians for Trump outfit, and he's got the hat on and everything, and he says, the Epstein files are a hoax. It's all a lie. It's all a lie. We got to go to war. It's cartoon bad. I thought you might like to see it. And then I got 5 Joe Kent clips and more after that as well. So I'll come rejoin you.
I was going to say what we might do, because I'm also gassed. I'm going to go, let's go. I'll go on for like another 10, 15 minutes and
Sure.
and do this. You should also save some of this for tomorrow.
No, you're right. I would say the Joe Kent clips are just available if you want them.
Okay, cool.
So I appreciate you. I'll be right back.
So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit before I get into some of this stuff. So question from you guys, was the deep dive helpful tonight? Did you guys get any perspective? Is it clear to you guys on what's going on in the market and why you feel like things are worse today? and do deep dives like this help in general. I'm genuinely curious. I'll be reading the chats from the live stream right now. Okay, so we got, okay, Brooke said yes, all caps. Awesome. Yeah, like I genuinely care when I do this. And big shout out to Ashley here. I'm going to pop you up on the screen here. She messaged me on X and she was like, hey, me and my brother had this conversation. We were talking about things being worse. And I have, I would like you to look into this. And I said, I got you. All right. I started looking into it a little bit. I'm like, damn, okay, this is bigger than it actually goes. Okay. So yeah, shout out to you. I do actually listen and I read comments when people really want something covered. And I try to do my best to cover something that affects everybody. That's the biggest thing. Yeah, on Civil Rest is going to check out Acorns. Highly recommend. Not financial advice, but it's something small that you can do. And the reason why I'm not going to go back into it, the reason why I cover that is because not everybody can just throw like $1,000 and go buy like gold. Like commodity isn't always the easiest thing to invest in. Not everybody on the drop of a dime can go and invest like 20,000 in the market and try to like time the market and do right, which is a stupid thing to do. But what you can do is the same $5 that you would spend on a freaking cup of coffee at Starbucks when you shouldn't be drinking that if you can't afford it. It is the same thing that you could be doing and throwing it into market to where you're hedging yourself against inflation. And my account from that has grown over 13% since I started that, by the way, which beats inflation significantly. That is why these rich people are winning. And I want you guys to also feel some sense of relief. Okay. So we appreciate you guys here on the comment section. People have basically said that this is going well as far as the deep dive. Now, I want to cover a couple of these things here. Maybe we'll talk about the Joe Kent here. I'm so gassed after that. But let me just see real quick. What has he got here? I'm in a fog state right now. Oh, yeah, he's right. Gold is $5,500. It used to be, I bought a piece of gold back when it was like $1,000, and that was like 4 years ago. Okay. All right. So where is he saying? Oh, Joe Kent, number one. All right. So we're going to play a couple of these clips from Joe Kent and Rex when he was on the War Room on the AJN network. Let's go ahead and pull that video up. What is it that you have up there, Wes? Go to Joe Kent number one. Yeah, there you go. Go ahead and let's play this a little bit.
I said, no, let me bring you back to October 1973 during the Yom Kippur War when Henry Kissinger instituted an arms embargo against us. He stopped the aerial resupply of our army at that point to extract diplomatic concessions from us.
No, I don't want to cover this, actually.
And what happened?
I actually want to cover the ridiculousness since we're on this topic because people are commenting on this this point here. Okay, Wes, can you do me a favor? Go on to my X account, to my profile, and you should see one of my latest posts, and it shows a picture of, I think, an iPhone. Oh, dude, where the hell did that go? Fine. It's not there. I want to address this. I get commercials every minute whenever the main point is reached, and every minute I watch Dirty Hands, something like that. The whole point, YouTube has also changed significantly. What you used to be able to skip ads for every after 5 to 10 seconds. Now you sit down and you're watching that whole thing 60 seconds in. You're watching that baby all the way through. You're not skipping nothing, right? We're going to get this ad money out of you, right? The ads has been the most frustrating thing for me in my life right now. Netflix used to buy that for $7.99 and you would get no ads. You get great freaking episodes. They had good seasons of stuff. They had great movies. And what do we get now for the same $7.99? We get mid-grade TV shows now. They're not even good anymore. It's like Disney, how they just don't have any of the classics anymore. And then you get ads throughout the entire video like it's Hulu. That's the reason why we get Netflix over Hulu. But now Netflix is the new Hulu. Okay, and if you want the no ads version, you can pay a small price of $20. Ain't that the truth? Okay, the straw that broke the camel's back, guys, when I tell you this is what I was trying to have, I was trying to have Wes pull this up. I pulled up, I just wanted to get some Chick-fil-A. I was hungry. It was the end of the day, and I'm like, let me pull up my map just to see where is the closest Chick-fil-A. And I pull it up, and there's this thing here, and it says, let me pull it up. I've got the photo right here. It says ads with an Apple logo. It says maps may show you local ads based off of your approximate location and current terms, or view the map and research. So essentially what they're doing now is you just want to go get some Chick-fil-A, but you're going to see some ads along the way so that you can buy something while you just want to eat. Ain't that the truth? It is a beautiful thing. We are being bombarded with ads. You cannot go anywhere without seeing an ad. It used to be that like you would only get ads when you're like watching TV and you'd know what to expect. Like the TV show that says it's 30 minutes is really only like 23 minutes or so, and you've got to account for those 7 minutes of ads. At least they were predictable. Now it's like you're just minding your business, bam, ad. Bam, ad. And you scroll social media, bam, ad. And you don't even know whether you're looking at a real post or somebody's giving you an ad half the time. It is an epidemic, right? At the gas station pump. Ashley is completely right. At the gas, you just want to get some gas. No, you gonna see this ad. Well, we're gonna sit there and tell you about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and all the other stuff that they push on you and try to get you to buy stuff while you're already trying to buy gas that's already $50 for just a tank of gas. If you drive a sedan, if you're driving a truck, God bless you. I wish you the best. It was fun while we lasted, but you're probably paying like $120 a week on top of the ads. And then you walk into a store, there's ads as you're walking around, and it gets to a point, man. It gets to a point. Like, is anyone else tired of it? Like, it's not getting me to like actually buy anymore. Like, because I already know in my head like what I actually want to purchase, and maybe that's just me because I'm a guy. But like, are these things working on you guys, or are these people just wasting their money? I'm very curious. Yep. 2-hour ad of Ben Shapiro. Yeah. Yeah, Ben Shapiro. You want to get some good content. You want to go watch a great podcast, go watch Ben Shapiro. He'll spend half the time reading you an ad instead of doing what we're doing here, trying to have good guests on and try to read you guys why the economy is so bad, you know? So it's just like, yeah, the forcing of ads just pisses me off. And you know what? It is literally because our economy is built on the consumer market. It's 60% of our market is consumerism. Okay, I want you guys to think about that. So when that is the vehicle and how these companies make money, and the government makes money by getting taxes on these corporations, you can see how it comes full circle. It's not like China, where China actually has some real manufacturing going on, and they've got all of these different things that they're investing in that allows their economy to produce something. No, like the entire world looks at America, and it's got this bright, shining star, and it's just the bat symbol right there for you and says, sell to me. That's why when Trump makes a tariff decision, he's like, I'm going to put tariffs on consumer items to hurt these economies, because it's not just American companies selling you this stuff. It's the entire world, and it's the cheap Chinese crap. Anybody remember the days when you used to get like a solid piece of furniture, and that baby used to weigh some at least 50 pounds just to move it? Now we got Wayfair. Now we got what is it? IKEA furniture everywhere. You know, you order something on Amazon, it looks fantastic. It breaks in 6 months. So that kind of is the world that we live in. And so when you combine that with being more disconnected than ever, it gets really easy to understand why people feel the way that they feel. And I I'm joking about this stuff, but it gets to a point. And you combine the fact that you're just bombarded with black pill war and all these different things, it is very easy to feel like the sky is falling. And that is the division that creates, and these are the things that are the real problems, but they want you to hate your neighbor. That's the bigger message here.
Bro, I just want to say, so like the issue turned out to be not mission critical, so I'm just going to take care of it tomorrow. But I was listening to you, like interacting with people and talking about the stuff you're talking about. This is the best show we've ever done.
What?
Absolutely. To the conversation, the speed of the information, be able to get through, the guest, all of it. I can really feel gray area truly coming together. And I just want to thank everyone that's been here, especially like from the beginning or, for a while at least. Like,
yeah,
this has been a real project. And I just got to say, like, I was very, not necessarily proud of myself, but I was very happy with the Joe Kent interview and hosting the War Room, because like literally that's day one of me going into like the new studio and figuring out how things work. I am so proud of you, bro. Like, you're doing a fucking phenomenal job.
I appreciate you.
Like, seriously, you're not following Truism Tim on X. You need to be. We're doing this show for a reason. It's because we really care about this stuff. And I think it's really coming across, because it's really coming across to me. And, it's not an easy thing to, have coherency and have deep thought and have real emotion and passion tied to that. That's genuine together.
Yeah.
And I really am recognizing that with you. And I'm proud of you as a broadcaster, bro. So like you're doing really good.
Nah, I appreciate really good, you, dude.
You have done well, Lord.
No, but like it's really just for the love of the game. And to be honest, when you start watching a lot of the other guys, like I watch you, I listen to how you talk, I listen to how Alex talks, maybe Harrison, a lot of these other people, Fuentes, and you kind of get a feel for like what your lane is, but like it really is a repetition thing. Sure. And I believe in what I'm saying too as I talk to you guys here.
It's the dedication, come in here week after week after week, day after day after day, and to put in that work to get better. And I'll be honest, I recognize it myself too. Like I was not a tenth of the broadcaster that I am now when we originally started doing this. I think and we've all gotten, dozens and dozens of times over better. You have really grown. And I'm just very impressed by it.
Appreciate you.
I just gotta say, it really shows that the original InfoWars model of just, hey, you do the show and you get better at it by doing it that way, instead of having the managing team control all of it. It's just, you're just doing the show.
You're just doing the show.
You're just connecting with people. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And the beauty is in the simplicity.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people ask us, I get DMs all the time, like, hey, where are you guys? Are you going to be on, we haven't seen you guys on the new network and everything. You got to understand that place is completely different than the InfoWars studio, the way the setup is. There's only one studio table.
They went from a bat cave to a doomsday bunker.
Right.
Best way to put it.
Super small. You're only going to get, they don't even have enough room to add a bunch of people in a space like that.
Coming, in the months and years, especially if you guys recommend, you say, hey, you want to see us back on there, that's the best way to do it, is call it. Let them call in. Call into the show and
call into his dad's show.
We love it. Oh,
and just say, where's Tim and Rex?
Yeah, where's gray area? We want gray area.
We miss those guys.
What's gray area? I don't know what that is. That's the name of your son. He'll remember. He'll be but that's just how he is. ADHD.
100%. No, and we'll work on our end. That's not dead. It's just it's a big transition period for all of that.
Oh, absolutely.
So we're gonna earn our stripes still by doing this. This is our marquee show. This is the thing that we spend a lot of time on. But you can still catch us together on, like, kind of, if you want to get that old school American Journal on Tuesdays.
Tuesdays we do it.
You know, you can catch us in the morning. I know a lot of people can't always catch the night show, but you can catch us on Tuesday mornings together. You're right. I think this is a phenomenal show.
Yeah, dude. And the thing that makes it so phenomenal is, like, we've had shows before we're like, damn, this is really good after it's done. This is correct. All right, this has been done correctly. There have been probably, like, 5 minutes total of, like, tiny little errors, and that's a damn near like a 99% success rate. So, like, we're just grateful that you guys chose to be engaged with us to let us get to this skill level, because we don't get the skill level without you. Because we know
100%.
there's thousands of you right now.
Yeah, and
really appreciate
the biggest thing, if you guys want to support, please go ahead and subscribe and follow to our accounts.
Yeah.
Especially Gray Area Talks. You guys are all probably on Rex's account right now, but Gray Area Talks is where you're going to find our clips. That's where you're going to find links to all the other things that we're doing. And it's just going to be only Gray Area. And we'll actually cross-pollinate. We'll be throwing American Journal stuff on there, too. It's all going to come together.
It's all going to come together. We're here for you mornings and evenings, and we truly do. It's an honor to get to be in that position.
Yeah, you can take a look at that, guys. Gray Area Talks. Very easy. It's on X. Go ahead. You can go in the link tree on that, and you can subscribe to YouTube. You can subscribe to Rumble. Just do it all. Because it doesn't cost you anything.
No, 100%.
But we really appreciate it because it really does help us grow the show. It gets us credibility. People actually recognize. That's why sometimes we're actually able to get these, like, big guests, is because they realize, oh, these guys kind of have something going on here. We're not just random Joe Schmoes. And that's because of you guys.
Yes. And we got to get Promo Core in the
yeah. I got to update this. This was just kind of originally
you're
Gray
good.
Area stuff.
The thing is, like, we're trying to make it as easy as possible for everybody to find us.
100%.
So, like, we're here for you on your favorite platform.
Now, with that being said, we appreciate you guys. We love you.
Yes, we do.
Tune in tomorrow morning. You can catch Rex.
8 a.m.
It's going to be his solo show tomorrow. You guys can expect great things. Next time you can catch me is on Tuesday.
Yes.
Love you. Be easy. Hope this helped tonight. Go download those apps. Trust me, you'll thank me later on Acorns. If you do anything, try Acorns.
Amazing. Thank you. Peace.